That should be fun. But...
Yep. Okay, so we're live. You see these wonderful faces on your screen. Going top to bottom, you have me, a little Shakespeare up in the top left. Below me we have Dave Dobb. After that we have activated Alien, and then we have Diogen. So say hi to everybody. Let's see if we manage to get... we have 11 viewers. So for the first time, it's not that... Like, we're getting there, if you know what I mean. Okay. So today we're going to review 2 games from this week. One game from Super Mafia All-Stars, which is hosted on Ryozilla's channel, and then one game from the preseason for the Liars Club League that happened this week as well. So Diogen and Dopp, you were both in this game. So let's start with what are the broad strokes of this game before we introduce all the players and what happened?
Sure. So the format is a little bit different than what we're used to here at Liars Club. It's a little bit of a longer format. Days are approximately 20 minutes. There's some fewer roles. So all the Mafia are vanilla. There are 3 town roles. There's a parody cop who gets comparative checks. There's a one-shot night vigi, and there is a non-consecutive medic.
Can the medics save themselves?
They cannot. So limited information, no flips as well. That's a major difference. So there's a lot of world building going on in these games. And this is a game 2 from last Wednesday. So a mixture of people, some that had just played a first game and got a sort of baseline on each other. Yeah.
Yep, so on your screen you can see a widget that we have built at Liars Club, which basically shows the game in kind of a condensed state. And we'll show you some video as well, this is after our VoD review. But let's just start discussing the game. So day 1 starts, we have a QN playing Die at Night. Neither of them obviously can be Mafia at this point. And we have a very interesting clip to start the day, and you can see the review on your screen. So if you're looking at the colors, they're not red and green because that would suck for some people who are colorblind. They are gray and orange. Orange is town, gray is Mafia, and if somebody is more transparent, that means that they're already dead. So we're gonna watch a clip from the start of the game. So you can see that Ryu, Rolf, and RJ are the Mafia. And just spoiler alert, Jan, Dave Dobb, and Rolf get to final 3. So just listen to the following clip from day 1 of this game.
Night, Plen, you die. Aquila, you die. Day begins.
Well, everybody's muted, so we can't listen to it immediately. Thank you for that, Mirage.
All right. I appreciate the paranoia-free...
I just want to say thank you to the Mafia team. There are 2 people I can't read these days for
Dude, I would have
plays the same as the alignment.
For the shit you said.
I'm gonna hard line you.
That's fine.
I believe you.
I don't give a fuck if you believe me. I'm just happy about those guys.
Same, dude.
I like both of, it's weird because I like both of them, but I'm glad I don't have to read them.
So Jan comes into the day and immediately starts saying, "Thank you, Mafia, for killing 2 people I can't read." Is this something you ever start considering in this format? Is this can it be just Hollywooding or whatever you want to call it?
There are people that do it, right? Jan, I don't think is one of them. He tends to clear himself within the first minute of the game disproportionately as town, and this was one of those times that I definitely believed him, because I felt the same way, right? Plen is a very difficult read for me, and Mafia killing him off night 0 was a benefit in my mind to the town. So I connected with him over that read, instantly found him, yeah.
Well, I mean, I have it somewhere in my notes. We're not going to show it, but at one point you didn't find him, and then you found him again, but that's fine.
Probably forgot about it at some point. These games are long, and I think that's something.
To be fair, this game took a wild turn. So, but when the game started out, when Jan was doing that, I could kind of see the same thing as everyone else is Jan's kind of coming out in a towny manner. I eventually came to a conclusion later into that day that Jan was trying too hard to be towny, which is where I started to flip on him. But I think at the start of the day when you were looking at it, the thing I wasn't thinking about was okay. A, who's trying to clear themselves all the kills and how are they doing it? And B, do those kills actually mean anything in terms of what the Mafia team themselves are trying to do? Because Aquila did not play in game 1. Plen just got backpacked in game 1 essentially off of being cop cleared. So it was one of those things where it's like, okay, these kills clearly weren't made based off of last game, but the Mafia team clearly does have a plan somewhere in these kills, so that's where like my brain was starting to think like off of the Night Zeros. But
do you think it's generally ill-advised to kill off, like, shall we say, polarizing players or players who are like generally hard to read by most of the people? Like, was this just a suboptimal move in some way that gave more information?
I think you can make the case that like killing players who are like easily town red would be better for Mafia, but there are also some games where the polar player is not going to read the game correctly, or the person that's hard to read for town reads you really well, so you're going to want to get them out of the game. So there's a lot of reasons why people would make kills. I guess it's mostly dependent on what the Mafia team wants to do in that scenario, I guess.
Right.
There's certainly levels to it, right? There's the medic who has a Night Zero save, so if you want to medic dodge, that's on your mind. But I, like, not to give away some self-meta, but I certainly go for the polarizing players, I believe. The people that are going to clear themselves, regardless of roles and claims, are always a threat, really. You just can't, if they're not mislynches, then why leave them alive, right? Yeah. So, in that vein, I think that IKEA was, or Aquila. I call him IKEA. I call him IKEA. Sorry. I think he's probably a pretty smart kill. People tend to read him well. Plen is kind of the polar opposite to that, in that I think Plen feigns emotion very, very well. He's a scary player. So that kill was genuinely surprising, and for exactly why Jan went on about it, right?
Yep. I mean, my point again, so, like, just a disclaimer, like, I've contributed, like, most of the clips here, so you're not seeing the game to Dobbs and the audience perspective, you're seeing it to the perspective of somebody who, like, is not that immersed in the format. But it like, knowing how the game progresses on, it just seemed that, like, all of, like, Jan's work throughout the game in the end was scrapped for, like, very little. And, like, I think that work starts in the beginning of the game itself.
We'll talk about it at the end, yeah.
Sure.
It's interesting how the end game started playing out, because he even saw it coming. And I think it has to do with just his history on the show and what tends to happen.
The show.
But, the show.
Okay, so
we're barely a game anymore. We're just a show.
A spectacle.
Moving on, there are a bunch of formos in day 1 and day 2, and there's like a very quiet period day 3. But Dave Dobb is formoed by Young Guns and RJ. RJ is the one who pushes the formo. Dave, what can you tell us about this formo?
So I was a little surprised to get formed, but I know Young Guns like read me as his top Mafia, so I wasn't like that surprised by it. So like when it happened in my head, I'm just like, all right, it's 6 minutes in the day, just go through my reads, give a decent form, because the most I can do in that situation is just to appear town and have people easily read me town. So I'm just like, I'll go through my thoughts. People read me easily town off of my Jan read, because at that point everyone was like, okay, Jan's super town, but like Dave's process is like genuine there. And so I think a lot of people saw that, just read me as town, read everything I was doing as natural. And in my head, I'm just like, I'm just going to go through my solving of the game, see what happens. And, fortunately, it got rescinded. I don't think anyone's going to vote regardless, but...
Yep, RJ didn't push his luck to try to get that vote to stick.
Yeah, well, RJ was also like in a weird situation where like, I knew because like I saw earlier in the day, RJ looked completely lost on what direction he wanted to send, and that's why I was like starting to read a Mafia, which I talked about in my formal, where I said RJ looked like he was fishing for mislynches, and then he just like looked like he couldn't find him, and then after my formal, he actually started talking about the people who was Mafia reading, said he had no direction, and just like, Kevin's done nothing. Jump Ropes has been towny, but meh. And I'm just like, RJ's literally proving my point. It was great. It was fun.
And then we have like, after Dobbs formal, in which I think that like after the point you were pretty much locked down for a lot of people. The formal bounced back to RJ, Steve, and then Rolf hammering onto RJ there. Why didn't RJ die there? Like, is it customary for people to die with like 8 minutes left in day 1? Like, has that ever happened?
It happens uncommonly. And it's usually a bad thing. It's usually just a town kind of getting railroaded early. Mafia love to end the day early without a whole lot of vote logic and votes on all their partners and otherwise that are eventually going to solve the game. So if you can just push the first one over, go for it. You're going to have like 7, 8 people in that vote, and you'll be hidden enough.
Sure, but my point is, how much does it matter that like RJ is 4 mode with like 4 or 5 or 6 minutes left?
People are dissuaded, some more so than others. Like a Steve probably is not going to vote at that point in the day, almost regardless. Yeah, Steve feels very strongly about using the entirety of the day. So like, there's certain people that you can predict are just not going to respond well to that. And if we thought RJ was Mafia, which I kind of did at the time, I did vote. We probably should have formal I did.
You did vote. Good job.
I think
we should have done it a little bit later, but
it's also at a point in the day, right, where it's like since you aren't incentivized to go because you still have day left plus another 2 minutes in case you don't want to lynch the end of day, you can get swayed a lot easier by things. Like I think, I was still like not that convinced on RJ, but I swayed myself because Kevin said something in his formal that I thought was like just spewing RJ Town as a wolf. So, like, I easily swayed myself off of voting RJ because Kevin said something. So,
well, it's super risky, right? So the main problem with it is because there are some people that you can predict are never voting. You can kind of you have a good estimate of how many people are going to vote as Mafia there,
especially if you know your teammates.
Particularly, as RJ's teammate there, and so Rolf has a beautiful opportunity to lightly distance and vote on his partner RJ there. So if there ever is any check day 2, he can even push a little bit if he knows that there's no risk of RJ actually dying. And sure enough, he does. And
sort of like getting the benefits of busing without the actual consequences of losing.
Right.
And that's a great thing about it, especially in our format, the ability to just be able to read the room especially as Mafia, you can be like, okay, this is going this way or this way. I can then do this to make things appear like why. It's such a useful ability, I think, in our format.
Yeah, you're definitely constructing some sort of narrative, and you're right.
And it sounds like a key determinant of whether people think you're Mafia or not is how much conviction you start building on certain narratives, right? Because you don't get the feedback that a narrative is wrong or right until much later, versus when you have flips.
Speaking of narratives, what happens in the rest of day 1?
Okay, so Kevin gets 4 mode. Guess who foremost Kevin? RJ as the first one, DOG and seconds Kevin. And Kevin gives a very I'm not gonna say non-convincing 4 mode to me, but it's a non-convincing formal for a lot of people. Like, Kevin gives a Kevin formal.
I think it's a formal a lot of people just vote on.
Yes.
Most of the time.
And, like, is this, like, a consequence of also when in the day it happens? Like, I think this is the, like, end of day formal?
It was the culmination of a very unconvincing day in general. Like, it wasn't the first time he had been called out. I feel like he had been called Mafia several times throughout the day and just didn't ever really respond with content. He just kind of like, no, you're wrong.
Shrugged it off.
Pushed it off a little too much, and so it got to this point where there was a legitimate threat of him dying, and he sensed that, right?
He sensed it so much that he did something that changes the entire game. So let me just see if I got the right clip here. But yeah, so let's listen to this Kevin claim, hopefully.
Last one push Kevin 10 seconds.
All right, well, since it looks like everyone's voting, I'm a PR, so good luck.
So just listen to the phasing here. Like, since it seems like everyone's voting, I'm a PR. Like, it's not I'm a PR, don't vote here, right? So I don't think that, like, anyone believes that claim, because it's a badly made claim, but people still don't vote him, which is questionable. Like, who voted there? Diogen didn't vote. Dub voted, and the Tomasia voted.
Although the reason I voted is a little more convoluted than I thought Kevin was Town or Mafia.
Sure. What's the reason you voted? Like,
usually when someone claims PR there, like, regardless of if I believe it or not, I'm going to vote there to, like, feign looking PR to, like, maybe buy a bullet as VT there. So generally there's a PR claim that's, like, somewhat questionable, or it's like just flat claiming PR. I'm probably just going to vote there to see if I can, like, eat a bullet. Doesn't always work as clearly, but I figured I would at least make the attempt. With how Kevin claimed, especially because if we sleep right, it's like, okay, well, we have this PR. If Kevin's not the medic should save him. If Kevin is the medic, we're kind of doomed. But
because medic can't self-save again. That's important to remember.
Right. So I forget why exactly I no voted. I think Kevin. I tend to have a very good read on Kevin when he leveraged that against me and said like if DLGN votes here, then you should look at him. I think he's only really tended to do that as town. Don't tell him. So I was never actually voting, but I wanted there to be pressure and I wanted there to be vote logic on him, just to see what happened in the aftermath. Him claiming there was unfortunate for many reasons in the aftermath, but. I actually did not think he was Mafia, and despite the pressure, was probably never voting. Then he claimed and still didn't vote, but yeah, we see what happened after
He
that.
also didn't vote on him the second time he was up to day 2.
Correct.
Which actually turned out to be a good decision, and we'll get there in the end. I mean, good. If you think that killing Kevin here is actually beneficial for the town,
It was a correct read. It was not necessarily the correct decision.
That happens often.
Yeah, I think that's actually fair to say. There are quite many of these. Like that's why when we do the poll, like during games, like who will get executed, the question is not who's Mafia here, right?
Who should die?
Who should die here, right? Who will people evaluate as like the best value proposition for?
It also seems with no flips that you sort of risk wrecking people's game state irreparably, right? Like there's no way to course correct if you're fake claiming and they don't have a way to figure that out in the end.
Yep, and this is kind of a clash between what we've been thinking about the game for a while, Alan, right? And like this one small change changes the entire way you're supposed to play the game.
But like that's also the thing though, because like it's not odd for like VTs to claim and like mini mafia either, but because we have flips, we can just like kind of give leeway to that. Whereas here, where there's like no flips, there's no actual way to like solve you unless you're just killed. But it's like then you're putting another PR on maybe the block, because eventually a cop's going to claim and a medic's probably going to claim at some point. And just like, okay, what PR was Kevin? You know, so claiming PR's VT is very slippery slope.
Yeah, I mean, Steve certainly didn't like it, and we're gonna get there in a second. Let's see if Twitch chat has any comments. Are they hating us yet? There's no comments. It's okay.
They're there. Ramses says hi.
They're
We got
watching.
James as
Okay.
well.
I mean, we can just keep pushing. Day 2 starts, jump ups and Wiggles that night. Any idea why those two people get killed in particular? Like, were they just PR hunting?
I want to assume all night 1 kills are always PR reads. And I think RJ had even called one of them explicitly.
He called Jump Ropes PR.
Yeah, he called her a PR, so that was certainly a PR read. And Wiggles, I could see, because I actually thought Wiggles was kind of a little scummy. So, they're always PR.
I thought they were kind of, if they weren't PR reads, they would be kind of odd kills, because I don't think Wiggles was like that big of a voice in town yet. He was getting taunted by he was getting taunted by a few of us, myself included, but I don't think he was like one of the voices of town. Jump Ropes was like in everyone's no list, or like light mafia. So
incidentally, given what the cup checks will turn out to be later, like killing Young Guns is a genius move because he was checked. Right? Like town would have had auto if Wiggles.
Or Wiggles, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, if Wiggles was alive and somebody like, I don't know, like Jan was dead, then like Town probably just wins the game.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so the first farmer of the day is on Colin. Guess who started it? Our one and only RJ, who this is, if you're keeping count, this is his third farmer for the game. Right? He's been pushing farmers all game.
This is how he does.
His teammates haven't done jack shit the entire game, like so far. Like I can't show it to you because there's nothing to show that's going on. But RJ is just trying to carry the Mafia team at this point, and he's creating enough content to do so. Diogen, there was quite a bit of hostility between you and Colin that game. So can you take us through like what was going on with Colin in that?
It's really strange. So I did play an aggressive game. I was involved in the first formal on RJ. I was involved in the one on Kevin, and then it came around to Colin. And I'm not really sure why Colin sort of flipped out. He wasn't a part of exactly the control of the game, and I don't know if that was bothering him or I don't know what. But I've gotten feedback from other people that didn't really share his perception of how the game was playing out. So I don't know. It's a little unfortunate because I tended to think that he was town for it, but he was. It's kind of the thing. Who needs to die, right? This person is so checked out of the game and just kind of feeling over it. Colin, yeah, and he's not particularly reading it well from my perspective at the time, at least. So I think the situation was the Vigi Rolo wanted to formal Mafia Ryu actually, and the cop whose life is on the line just I think preferred Colin. So I think I seconded in Colin's direction, and then Colin just kind of.
Sure. So at this point, we haven't noted it, but Rolo has already claimed to be the one-shot VG.
Right.
He already claimed day one. Is it customary for them to leave the VG alive so they can make a bad shot? Like backtracking a bit?
So the Vigi's very rarely going to shoot night one. They are a safe medic save, and so a lot of times the Mafia are trying to hunt the cop. And so they'll put their 2KB elsewhere, and so the Vigi will like de facto survive until day 2, and then they're a likely medic save then as well. So normally the Vigi will live until day 3-ish.
So what you're saying is you don't want to double stack the Vigi night one. Okay.
There are people that think that's a fine play because they are a confirmed town, and even if a cop does survive with a green check or 2, what's the difference? But most people tend to avoid the Vigi there.
Okay, I mean, going back to Colin, like one thing that's common to Colin, like across pretty much every game he plays, like he plays on pretty much all the communities these days, is that he's like probably the most emotional player in the game, myself excluded because I don't play.
Very much so.
So how do you approach reading somebody like we have one more player like this called Lexi in our group, and like with her, like it's always her outrage at how bad others are playing. And at some point, the evaluation for her is she faking it this time? Is she actually outraged? And I think the same question can be asked for Colin here. Like, how do you evaluate somebody who's that emotional? Like, do you just say, oh, like, you're not a good player, like, I refuse to evaluate you if you don't play like I want you to play? Or do you start playing ball with him? Because I think the answer here was the former, and I think that's like, contributing to the town loss here.
There are very few people that I think will punish somebody just because they don't like his style. Sure. I think a lot of people do clear him off his positive energy and find him successful.
But what about the negative energy? What about when you're like... Yeah, because that's what is happening here, right?
Mm-hmm. And it probably does lean more Mafia for him, so like maybe 70-30, but there are games where he just comes in not in the greatest mood, and it has literally nothing to do with his alignment, and I think that was perhaps one of these. As much as I love Colin, I think it was just, I don't know, his state of mind at the time, and just wasn't feeling it, and I don't know, something set him off. So it's a little hard to work with, and what are you going to do?
Okay.
I mean, like, usually when I play with Colin, I take whatever mood he's in and just scrap it. It does not matter to my read on him. It does not matter to how I should think about him because as Mafia, he can also have positive energy and try to look really towny. He tried to do it in game 1 of All Stars and got away with it for like a few days until the PoE just killed him. But I think with Colin, it's one of those things where it's not how he's acting, it's what his actions are accomplishing. Like, does his thoughts come from a town perspective, or does it sound like a Mafia agenda? Is he doing things to try to further himself in the game as Mafia, or is he doing things to try to further towns towards victory? I think that a lot of his stuff comes down to what do his actions mean and not what are his actions, I guess.
Sure. Aiden, you've seen Colin in many games.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm actually a little more biased towards the latter thing you described, whereas you try to play ball with them. I mean, maybe you could argue, like, is it a short-term optimization versus a long-term optimization? Like, maybe over the long term, you really don't want to get involved in the nitty-gritty of people's emotional states at the start of the game, because that's, like, a lot of effort, and you're going to be wrong, and maybe it's just better to play, like, textbook Mafia, because it's going to get you better results in the long term. But, I don't know. I think it depends on how often you play as well.
I mean, Colin plays a lot of Mafia All-Stars.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I'm personally
like
more biased to like try and benchmark from the way they seem to be before the game starts. But it's not a sure thing. Like,
yeah, I mean, for me, emotion is one of the hardest things to fake. And like overlooking it and just saying, okay, I'm going to evaluate you on whether you have an agenda is like when it comes down to people with high emotional amplitudes, I believe it's worthwhile investing the time to actually try to deduce stuff from their emotions. But like the reason I'm bringing this up is because I see, like, especially I think Colin is largely not the victim per se, but like he suffers a lot from like just like the meta of like not appealing to emotion, not listening to the emotion, and just like trying to logic the game out. Like,
well, it's difficult, right? Because he's not only is he a very emotive person, but he also is like that. That's a lot of how he reads the game, and so he'll just have these very strong gut feelings, and it's hard to reason with him. So he can be a town that's very difficult to work with, right? Like he tends to be very paranoid of me, and even when I'm able to like hard clear him based on that emotion, read him. It's not necessarily like bi-directional, right? So like I have a hard time convincing him to be on board, and he like we all like to be right? So I'm not immune from this myself. You know, I suffer the same things at times, but like it could be hard to work with, and so the whole playing ball thing easier said than done sometimes.
Yep, and you have another like 12 people in the Zoom to deal with.
Right.
So that's the flip side there. I mean,
right.
fair enough.
You never want to Thunderdome someone like ever. Especially if you think that person is town and they're just coming for your throat, it's not fun.
What do you mean by Thunderdome? Sorry.
So like, don't think when you Thunderdome someone, it's just like two people going essentially one on one. Essentially, you like nothing else in the game matters. It's just you and that other person just butting heads, pretty much.
You're making it so that they have to kill one of the two of you, so that the game can progress in a like good state.
Yeah.
Anyway, just the important thing to note here is that Colin is Firmo, but the vote is not pushed. The Firmo is rescinded by RJ, who saves it for later, as like you can see it on the screen already. Now let's hear Steve's thoughts about Kevin's claim, because this shapes.
Why do all these vanilla towns think claiming PR is better than them?
They don't, because they're mafia.
From the vote?
Why do all these vanilla towns think that claiming PR? And then Dub chimes in and says, because they're mafia. Okay, so we're coming back to Kevin. Kevin is on trial. Kevin is about to die here. I mean, I think this was better handled in the long run than like one of the last club games this week, but I think like Kevin should have always been the kill over Colin this day. It just felt that like Town was never letting him go for that claim.
Yeah. It's a very impactful moment, and you can try and tease out how you think the game would have played out had other things happened. It's difficult to say, but like had Kevin been the Lynch, then the Vigi would have had a shot that they could, or
they would have shot. Rolo would have shot Rayo instead of Kevin.
Right.
Get on site.
So KP wouldn't have been reduced either way, right? So both Colin and Kevin were down this game. So either way, the cop is always getting double stacked. Young Guns is always
actually because Young Guns didn't claim until Kevin's formal didn't go over, because Young Guns didn't claim till his formal. So if Kevin just dies, Young Guns never claims, and Mafia has to put their KP somewhere.
Oh, so we're saying right now, like early in the day. Okay,
in this moment, Young Guns doesn't necessarily get double stacked.
I got you. Yeah. So right. So Kevin gets formal here, and we listen to his defense of his actions.
I mean, it wasn't a particularly good defense. Like, it was just more of Kevin, like, from day one. Like, I don't think he can dig himself out of that hole ever, unless he's actually, like, a real peer.
Yeah. Like, so I came into the day putting additional pressure on him, because, like, in recent... part of this is meta, right? In recent weeks, last week, claimed PR day one as Mafia, and the entire discussion of the game revolved around punishing PR claims from day one who survived the night, right? They're more often than not Mafia, just trying to save their backs. Yeah. So when I survived, and then when there was a counterclaim situation, there was rightfully a lot of suspicion in my direction, and the counterclaim went on for like 3 different days.
And you think that's happening to Kevin here as well?
Well, if he had seen that game, he should understand that is likely how this is going to play out, right? We made it clear last week that, as in general, the rule or the belief is that Mafia. Rule.
Okay,
it's like a 90-10 maybe.
But like you know that saying, like, hell is other people.
Right. So I get it, but like, you have to understand. Like, you have to think about what is his motivation to do that as town, because
to stay
what
alive.
is it? to stay alive. But it's selfish. It's short-sighted because you're not going to have information, and so you have to think that your reads are worth so much more than everyone else's, and then you have to realize that like you're not going to have any foot to stand on the next day when you don't have a PR to claim.
Sure.
People are going to be extremely suspicious of you, and even if you do have perfect reads, you're probably not going to be able to successfully push any of them. So like the actual benefit of surviving that extra day is like almost non-existent, right? Just your VT, just die, let your vote solve the game.
Die and let live.
Well, for me during Kevin's formal, I was under the impression that I was like Kevin was already having a tough hill to climb. His formal didn't help it because like
right.
Kevin the whole day was just shrugging off Mafia reads and calling DLGN Mafia the whole game. He never really did much else to try to solve. And I'm just sitting there like, dude, like give me something else. And not until his 10 seconds did I hear him give a read that wasn't DLGN and RJ or Mafia, which I'm like, come on, man, I want something out of you. And instead, it was just the same story over and over again. It didn't help that his formal got like derailed to talk about Rolo's Vigi shot, which like I guess if you want to look at a point where like Kevin was just dead to rights, it was that point because no one cared. And then he just lives, and I was beside myself because I'm just like, even if Kevin's
you were beside yourself,
that dude should always be dead here.
So he's
I kept that on
right?
camera. So let's just get this formo and see the clip.
Okay.
With 11 live ticks, 6 to lunch, like the bottom. Kevin, please raise your hand to vote. In 3, 2, 1, vote. 1,
so there's 5 votes on Kevin.
3.
It's not enough to kill him.
5 is not enough to take.
And just keep watching Ryo. Just keep watching Ryo.
What are you doing?
Awesome.
What are you doing?
How do you
That's
not
actually
What do you think, Kevin?
So you see Ryozilla in your top left, who knows that his partner Rolf did not vote there. I think that's what that facial reaction tells us. So here's the vote. Two Mafia vote on Kevin. Rolf doesn't, right? Ryozilla is like thinking face. Why didn't we kill Kevin here?
It's one of those tough situations. As Mafia, you want to look good and you know that they're town, and so you want to be on the right side of the vote. But like after he survives, you're actually in more danger for not voting for being his partner. so it's super risky, and the
script flips pretty quick there.
Snag the mislinge and move on, right? So I can understand his concern, and it was visible.
Well, like the other thing is that this is the one thing I think most of town didn't think about until after the game. The vote on Kevin on day 2, because Kevin's that day should just be a sinking ship, means absolutely zero. So I think worrying, especially from Raw's perspective, worrying about looking like Kevin's partner or just voting on Kevin, even if you're just like, people start thinking he's town, means jack squat, because the people who think he's Mafia know that vote doesn't matter, and the people who don't think he's Mafia are just like, well, whatever.
It's easy enough to justify after the fact.
Yep.
It took nothing to vote there.
It's interesting, right? So that's the second time I no-voted Kevin as Kevin's number 1 always hard lock Mafia read. Yep. And so what like I do that sometimes. I do it more often as town.
So if Kevin is town, you're town, and if Kevin is Mafia, you're still town. Basically. Unless you're hard bussing him the entire game.
Well, like that was thrown out there. There's also like he's always dying this game, and so just like dangle him around for multiple days, and he's always going to be a point of discussion and just derail the whole game. I get that, and that's what Kevin chose to believe, which is unfortunate because like he wasn't able to find me at all, and I don't know if I ever really made a serious attempt for that to happen, but
well, he died the next night, so it didn't matter.
Right.
Like, you were never taking him to like the end of the game anyway.
But it is important to ascertain his alignment at some point, right? So for the rest of us, we are world building, and it's really difficult at this point to ever find Kevin as town. So like when the logic of the game progresses a little bit beyond this point, and we'll talk about that shortly, but like when you're building worlds, you almost are forced to assume that Kevin was Mafia, especially from my perspective. It's very difficult to assume that to find worlds where he was town.
I see.
But
I mean, that threw you off, I think, in Final 8 as well, because you weren't looking for a world of 3. You were assuming that always one of Colin, who eventually dies today, or Kevin was Mafia.
And it makes RJ Mafia look very good because RJ day one went after Kevin with me. So yes, I had difficulty finding RJ after thinking he was Mafia and voting on him day one. So there are consequences to these things. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So there's more DOGN going on here. So Young Guns is the next. Young Guns is the next formal. Let me. Okay. So what's the count here? 4. These are 4 RJ formals.
Yep.
On 4 townspeople who like his teammates are just sitting back making faces. RJ is just formaling people. RJ is getting it done.
Yep.
Okay. So Young Guns is formed by DOGN. At this point, DOGN has been in a conflict with Colin already. And with Kevin, and now with Young Guns. So let's see Young Guns' reaction to this.
You can't say DLG and I are together.
Honestly, I can't believe he no-votes you.
I can't believe you no-voted him. You're a mechanical player, Young Guns.
The OGN
always vote on a claim that's provided.
You do realize that.
And you're frozen. You can't even speak right now.
I'm the fucking cop, so I don't give a
With
fuck.
what check? With what check?
I don't have any useless checks. My night 0 was Rolo, and my night 1...
Clearly. Jesus Christ. I
don't the OGN's not being belligerent at all this game, guys.
Yeah. Keep looking at the OGN.
And your night 1 was...
Wiggles.
That's useless.
So in this clip, I see a man whose entire suddenly you go from being the hunter, being the person who pushes leads, to having just pushed the cop, right? Which is quite an unfortunate situation to find yourself in.
I don't have any useless honestly, he was bumbling.
He was
no regrets,
right?
It is, and you're right. I see my fate before my eyes. It's like 3 days down the line. This is going to kill me.
It's like I'm the best player in the Zoom, and I'm about to die.
Yes.
I really love that moment because I really love people. I think that's one of the problems with Zoom, and when we play in a live cycle, it's so much easier to see this. But you see people just shrivel and react to things live, and if you just focus on a few people, you're gonna get some really golden reactions. I think Ryozilla is a great person to watch. I think Diogi on this game is a great person to watch. It's just hilarious.
It's the worst feeling in the world when you're pushing on someone, you're so convinced they're Mafia, and they're a roll.
Yeah, they're just sitting on the
I've visibly deflated before. Quite literally just visibly deflated pushing on a roll.
I don't even feel that bad about that one, to be honest. I'll have to more closely look at day 1 and day 2 to see just how much Young Guns had done that I'd missed.
Not much.
Exactly. So
his checks were dead. He couldn't really solve
that too. So I don't know. You have to put pressure on these people that aren't doing anything, right? So as you alluded to, RJ is doing everything. So Ryu needs pressure. Rolf was kind of considered clear by most people, but Ryu definitely needs pressure. There are people, Young Guns, they need to do things at some point, and
if people don't do things, by the time your information accumulates enough to kill somebody, then you have nowhere to go the next stage, right?
Yeah,
that's the story here. I mean, okay, so let's move on. So Young Guns is the cop. He has to come out here. Steve is still hidden. Guess who foremost Colin? The Mafia. So I think, but this time it was Rolf who went on Colin first. I think that's what I got here. But yeah, so Colin is foremost. Was there ever a way you were sleeping there, 2 sleeps in a row?
The cop's life is on the line. You lynch anyone just in hopes that because you cannot be 100% certain that they are town, you lynch literally anyone and just try to reduce KP and save the cop's life.
It was unfortunate it landed on Colin, but I think...
Can you explain that a bit more? Just
Sure. So Mafia have 2 KP until their numbers are reduced from 3 to 2, so until you lynch one of them. And there's a medic floating around who's presumably, if they're alive, going to put the save on the cop. So in order to kill the cop that night and eliminate him out of the game with having provided no information to the game, you want to maintain your 2 KP. And so... generally speaking, the cop should be in control of his own fate and should be the one probably making the formal there. And actually, I don't think anyone ever brought up the fact that Rolf made the formal on Colin.
It was. They actually brought it up. I didn't clip it.
They did?
Yeah.
Okay. So that is important information.
I think exactly Steve said something to the effect of, it is very convenient that with a cop claim and a VG claim, Rolf and RJ are formerly Colin.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like later on, that could have been used or brought up against Rolf.
I was thinking about it during day 3, and it wasn't brought back to my attention until Jan brought it up in final 3.
Yeah, it was always part of like why RJ was dying that game, but that Rolf was involved as well is actually pretty significant, right? Because Mafia want to maintain their KP. So,
so the logic here is you're trying to get one Mafia out of the game, so that there is some upside to actually keeping the cop alive. Because if you don't vote anyone, you haven't killed Mafia. The Mafia always kill the cop.
Yeah,
you're not getting any compensation.
But even if you kill somebody, the Mafia are always gonna double stack the cop to not give away how many of them there are, right?
Well, you always double stack the cop because even if there is a save, like a majority, like if there's 3 alive, you're always double stacking the cop regardless, just to make sure he's dead. And if a Mafia is somehow lynched, you might tempt fate putting KP on the cop. You might not. They probably do anyway, but it's kind of weird.
I'm gonna imagine that Steve saved Young Guns there anyway.
Would you say it's like a shortcoming on the part of the town that the PRs weren't the ones pushing the formals there? Is that like a takeaway here that you're outed like that?
This is why, in hindsight, I think the kind of development of this formal was like in hindsight one of the biggest moments of this game, because RJ formals Colin, Rolo the outed Vigi, then formals Ryuzilla, and then Rolf like a second later. Then seconds Colin. I think that in itself, like somewhat, it at least outs like 2 of the 3 Mafia, and in hindsight outs all 3 Mafia, because a formal made by the Vigi on Ryuzilla was taken away by his 2 partners. So I think that was really the big key. I think in hindsight, it looks like the key moment of that game.
Yeah,
where Pinfield turned for Mafia.
And it's just hard to know at the time that is, you know, that's happening, because Town want to clear themselves too, and if, you know, in the world where RJ and Rolf are Town and they successfully snap it on Mafia Colin and reduce KP, and you go into the night and there's like a save on the cop or something, like there's so many from Town off of that play that the game is solved, like regardless of what the cop has the next day. You just have so many confirmed Town. So like Town want to do it as well. It's not always, you know, a Mafia to snap there, but in this case it was.
It was. Yep.
But like you also want to Town, but it's like it's also a thing when like the vigilante is also basically taking the cop's fate in his hands, and instead of seconding the vigilante formal, you second random guy RJ who formed like 10 people's formal.
Yep, I mean, fair enough. I think a little bit of a better organization from the town perspective there would have been nice. But I'm also not sure, like, I haven't watched too many Young Gun games. I've watched more Rolo games, I imagine. But I am not of the impression that Young Guns would have taken the reins there to try to rally the town. It was on Rolo to do something with his claim.
Yeah. I mean, Young Guns, like outside of DLG, I don't think Young Guns seemed confident in a lot of his reads that game. He even said it when he formaled me. He's just like, I have no conviction in this whatsoever. So he didn't seem like he was very comfortable with his reads, on top of the fact that he had essentially 2 useless checks. I think he was kind of in and out of his element mode.
It can be tough. When you ran copy, you're expecting to have, you know, more information than others, and when you don't, you may not.
Because you've actually not been paying maybe as much attention, knowing that you're the information, then it turns out to be kind of kaput.
Exactly.
Like especially in his spot where he formaled the Vigi, like his check probably, I think his check probably could have been better, because like we had a formal on RJ, and we had a formal on Kevin. I think there was a lot of people that were still like under the spot, like DLGN could have been formal. I think checking wiggles when you have like a bunch of information like that, especially when you're essentially getting green and red checks, checking the Vigi the first time, it's kind of, I thought it was a kind of an iffy check at the time, because I'm just like, there's a lot of checks that could give information. Wiggles.
I mean, it goes back to the. I mean, sure, like you can check. So as there's like a whole theory you can try to develop on how the policeman should check, like regardless of what the cop actually does. Like because the Mafia wants to cure from like the strong to the weak players, but also have to take into account like the strongness relates to how well you can stay alive, right? And I think the cop has to check from the bottom up. Like he has to check the people who are not very likely to defend themselves very well. Like that's where I'm at currently. Like I check the people I would never be able to find because they're like not good at conveying themselves to me, right?
That's an interesting point, because I think a lot of people go after like fear checks, like the strong players. They want to get know their alignment with certainty. But it is very powerful to amass green checks. The people that Mafia aren't going to be killing that are more likely to be alive, because you get you find out that strong player X is town, and then they die in the night, and whatever, it's worthless. So
you can make the case also for like a defensive. That sounds to me more like a defensive strategy of checking, where you're sort of like trying to prevent mislynches by checking the people who will be, versus like an offensive strategy where you're trying to just actively go after the people, right?
Yeah.
Because like 3 green checks are way more valuable than like a red check.
Yeah.
And your death.
Yeah, I've actually just recently played a game where like my cop roll was literally text me into trying to make defensive checks, because if I got a red check, I would have lost checking power. So it basically texted me into finding green checks.
I like this policeman. I actually like it. That's a cool role. Anyway, just a close update to Colin has to die here. But remember, again, RJ and Rolf just butting up, taking Rollo's vote. Like, it's insane to me. And like you can clearly see, like, moving on, day 3 starts. Young Guns is dead. Kevin is dead. Kevin was shot by the VG. I haven't reflected all the night actions on the widget because I ran out of time. But Kevin
sounds like this where we wish we saved the pace, Ben.
Yeah, Kevin is shot by Rollo. I completely disagree with that shot. I think he should have stuck to killing Ryu. And I think killing Ryu there provides a lot more utility to the town.
Well, the order doesn't matter, right? So
I mean, it kind of does, because you don't like the moment you shoot Ryu, like you can like as Rollo, that's your probably last chance to impact the game in a positive way. Like you're shot, because after that you're just like as good as anyone else. And like town was pretty lost.
I think that thought is fair, but I also think like you got to think from the perspective of like the day, and also somewhat how you have to think later down the line, because like say he does shoot Ryu, we're then wasting another day just completely focusing on Kevin, and other people are just allowed to do whatever because we're so focused once again on Kevin. Yeah. So it's like
I think there's some utility to eliminating like a variable that consistently presents problems, right?
Fair enough.
If you feel strongly about it, Ryu is the harder lynch. So, taking that shot and just ensuring that kill happens at the hands of town yourself is fine. Because Kevin is just dying regardless of, Rollo's involvement at that point. It's going to happen. So if he wants Kevin dead, it'll happen. But the order, it doesn't really matter. So, he shoots him that night, and KP's not reduced until the following night anyway.
In hindsight, it doesn't matter, yeah. So.
Yep, okay. Fair enough. Moving on, we have the FOMO on Ryuzilla, and there was this really interesting interaction between Ryu and Rollo, in which, Rollo was like, I'm shooting Ryu. And then, I don't have that clip. I have the FOMO from Ryuzilla addressing that. So let's just hear what Ryu has to say. He seemingly softed.
So I believed his PR claim, and then when it turns out he probably wasn't a PR, I voted on him. That's what I would do, but I'm not forced to do that. You said that the next day, Rollo, that I'm forced to do it. You also said I was forced to claim medic. I was never the medic.
I thought you were softing medic when you told me not to kill you.
I know. I just vehemently don't like being Vigi shot when I'm town, and I fight for it. That's all it is. And oftentimes that does get mistaken for me softing a roll. I don't soft. I only hard. That's all I do. I would hard exactly.
Yeah, that's why I still.
So just listening to Ryuzilla here, he's like, I don't soft. I only hard. Keep that in mind going forward. It's almost like I'm Mafia this game, but when I do this as town, don't read it against me in the future games. Right?
I can see that. He's right. He doesn't soft. So when Rollo interpreted what he said that way, he shouldn't have.
I mean, I interpreted it the same way as a person who forgot that Ryuzilla was Mafia when I was rewatching the VoD.
It's one of those things that it was one of those things that in the moment when you heard him doing it, it sounded like it sounds like a PR soft, but it's also one of those things where it's like I personally take stuff like that with a grain of salt, because it's like at the same time town and Mafia also don't want to die just as badly as a PR does. Just sometimes towns will convey it like PRs do, which is kind of meh, but BTs will do it. So it was one of those things where where like I figured Ryuzilla doing that wasn't as alignment indicative as it would, or as role indicative as it would appear. But at the same time, it's like after he claims not PR, he was getting scum read by quite literally everyone. Everyone said he was like in all worlds. So
yeah, I don't think there was a way he would have saved himself, but I think he gave it a good shot. Yeah. And also just going back to like whether he was softing or not, the question is, sure, you can say that you're not softing, you're never soft. But if you say it in a way that like somebody might, like, what does soft actually mean? Like if you say
interpret it that way, yeah.
If somebody, like if you know somebody's exact like interpretive like process, and you say something that makes exactly that person think you're like that raw,
sure.
But nobody else like is that soft?
I've had it happen all the time where like someone in the last 10 seconds of their formal will say something that sounds like exactly like a PR soft, and then people don't, but it's just like that's not a PR soft. They just want to live.
There were several of those in the Liars Club game that we talked about. So
we'll
yes.
Get there.
Oh, I can't wait to talk about that. I have thoughts about that one.
Man, I can't wait for Dub's interpretation of, I quote, Logan's best game ever. I actually thought Logan played that really well. But we'll get there. Let's one game at a time.
Yeah.
Ryozilla has a bullet with his name on it, and everybody except IJ knows it.
Apparently, yeah.
And like,
is he the only know better?
Yeah, he's the only know better.
Wow.
And
everyone knew Ryu was dead except for RJ, I guess. Not even trying to fight Fred there.
Yeah, RJ was holding on to hope. Also, RJ, after day 2, just goes into, like, hibernation. RJ's like, my job here is done. Like, it comes down to final 3 here. Like, by the way, like, the distance between the end of day 3 and the end of day 6 is 1 hour and 40 minutes. So RJ has to be, like, very low effort to, like, actually have a chance in final 3 if he gets there. Because
he never gets him. Well,
sure,
given how the game was playing,
if he ever gets there.
Given how the game was playing, he needed to get to Final 5 and then live Final 5 because I believe Rolf was the end game for Mafia. Rolf was the win condition.
I agree with this, but what I'm saying is I think the Mafia went into like power savings mode.
Yeah,
so they could get to like,
damage control. Let's make sure this gets there.
Yeah, if you just look at it, like it's just down talking throughout that day, so it's quite amazing. Nobody dies at night. Steve gets the save on, I believe, Golo, and then he comes out at some point.
Correct.
I believe it was Roller because we didn't clear anyone off of his save.
Let's see if RJ Formodian. RJ Formodian, 5. We're
Without
at
fail.
5.
The funny thing about the formal on Jan is that when RJ formaled him, I'm just like, Steve really wants to kill RJ. I'm even going to no vote on Jan, knowing full well that I'm going to get hammers that Jan could get hammered if I vote, knowing full well that we're killing RJ today.
Yep, I mean, I think everybody was in that state of mind, except RJ didn't get the memo, because I think, again, he was in power savings mode. He was like, my job here is done, like, Rolf, you good luck, buddy. Let's just hear Jan's formal. Like, there's something here that
I've given my accusation so many times that no one wants to hear it anymore. So just give your phone.
Like, I know I'm dying because Rolo is a fucking gimp and I don't give a fuck. Like, whatever.
So, Rolo, if you're listening to this, you're a gimp, says Jan, at least. But yeah, I'm not sure why Jan thought he was getting voted out there.
This day was really interesting to me. The majority of it was myself trying to reason with Rolo and Town kind of seeing the writing on the wall. I think at this point, Jan started speaking. It's interesting, right? For how strong of a start Jan had and for how cleared he got so early, he started talking as though it was a foregone conclusion that he was dying this game. Several people were doing this, mind you. RJ was doing it, who, if you know anything about RJ, that's not his style. If he believes you're Mafia, which he believed I was Mafia, he would have done his damnedest to get me killed, preferably first. The way he was playing it was like, so he was rolling over and just saying, trade, kill both of us, right? So that's weird, number one. The odd thing, number one. Second of all, Jan starts talking, he's looking down the road too, and he's like, all right, we're killing both DLGN and RJ, and it's going to be me versus Rolf in Final 3, and I'm fucked. Like, he's literally saying that he's always losing that Final 3 if it gets there. So he's banking on R2 Lynch's ending the game. And it's weird because he's in such a good position. And I guess maybe he had a better sense of like Dave's read and Rolo's read, like other people's reads on him.
Yeah, because at that point, I never gave a reevaluation on Jan. All Jan knew about me was he was my top Mafia on day one, and I have yet to say anything more about Jan afterwards. I think at that time, my thoughts on Jan weren't that he was like Mafia, but it was just like Jan's still in PoE territory. But I wasn't like super convinced Jan was my top Mafia that day. But I think if I had an order, it was like RJ and Jan were like close, and then DLGM was actually my worry about in Final 3 territory.
Because talk about like missing the memo again. Jan gets formaled and gets 1 vote. Guess from who?
You can see it on your screen. The big fat gray arrow.
It is RJ again. So like RJ. At this point, like everybody thinks Jan is town, and Jan still thinks that he doesn't have a chance down the line. I was never voting on him. I didn't even look at the vote. I just had my head down because I had remembered my day 1 clear from him, and Jan gave a townie formal. Like I at this point had a 1-track mind, and I only wanted to kill Rolf, just because I believed Kevin was Mafia.
But you're
and that
RJ with Steve.
Town.
You're for more RJ with Steve, so
I did, but
because
it was
RJ
because Steve was demanding it.
Yeah. Also that day in Final 7, like Rolo, myself, and Steve all decided that Rolf was just town. He was not getting touched in Final 7. So even if DLGN or one of the unconfirms like spoke up to try to take Rolf, given that the 2 confirmed towns and Steven, Rolo, and then myself, who was being basically treated like confirmed town, weren't going to touch Rolf, that was never going anywhere. So that's kind of like the hard part for trying to get Rolf killed.
The thought that's in my mind right now is, like, especially when I've played these, like, setups that pretty much Mafia has to win in Final 3, like, 70% of the time they actually win.
Okay.
You, as Mafia, you start thinking about Final 3 way before anyone else. Just because you know who you want to take there, and you, like, and I think this speaks to Jan's ability as a player to be able to project exactly what the Final 3 would look like. Mm-hmm. But it can come off as Mafia in the moment. And similarly, the question is, if you're Diogen in this case and you want to kill Rolf more than anyone else in the Zoom, even though RJ is already outed, like, is there like the idea to transpose the kills, make sure that Rolf doesn't get to Final 3 because then like Town probably loses?
Well, it's really interesting, right? So if you watch this day closely, RJ senses that coming from me, and he crafts his whole play around clearing Rolf. So not only does he want to trade with me, but he's
trying to get Rolf
putting the seed in Town's mind that you never put your hands on Rolf this game. You never lynch him. He's our just golden ticket to victory, and we're
the Hollywood boy going all the way.
Holly Rolf is his name, exactly, and he is like. He is the guy that, like, do not doubt your read there. Everybody has read him town. You are correct. We can never lynch him. So he's, like, trying to project that he's still town and accepting his fate under the one condition that we never touch Rolf. And he puts a lot of effort into that, and knowing that he's Mafia.
So maybe he doesn't just roll over. He rolls over running intervention, like running, what do you call it in American
interference.
Football? Interference, exactly. That game that I don't watch. Thank you, but yeah, I think that's actually pretty well played. And I think maybe in this situation, like, you gotta put your foot down and say, like, RJ is clear Mafia. If we're in a world of 3, we have to kill RJ. But let's assume that at least one of these really scummy people that we killed was Mafia. And let's kill the person who we shouldn't let get to Final 3 because he's gonna win. Like, if he's Mafia. So I think in a way, like, you gotta, like, mess up with Mafia's Final 3. Because they're building it around you, and you gotta say, okay, like, we have one mislynch to give, and we shouldn't give it in Final 3, we should give it in Final 7.
It's a big part of being Mafia, is being able to construct your world and your town that you're playing with, and try to project votes and secure the lynches you need. So he's definitely, they were all thinking ahead, and Town and Mafia were.
And like a lot, like, I think my biggest problem was because I think for most of that game I was tunneled under the idea that the 2 Mafia hits were Kevin and Ryuzilla. Because in Final 7 I was even thinking that there was just one Mafia alive because the way people were interacting didn't feel like there's Mafia alive. But it was a weird situation where like if I thought about RJ being Mafia, RJ was of course hindsight, RJ was definitely sending Rolf Longcon. But in the moment playing the game, I was like in my tunnel on the Kevin Ryuzilla world. So it took like a hard turn if I didn't think about RJ being Mafia.
It's weird though. Like if Town was convinced that's the world, I still have trouble thinking that either RJ or I are Mafia there. Like the two of us were primary.
It's very hard to think.
Kevin got lynched, so it's like
I think it's very hard to think you're Mafia, but I think because RJ is not above bussing weak teammates. I don't think.
Sure.
So I could feasibly be like RJ's push on Kevin means less because of how Kevin plays. That's why I really didn't want to touch you DLGN, and why really killing Jan in Final 5 felt more correct to me.
Yeah,
I felt like I could have gotten to you, gotten just you as Town, never with Kevin and Lynch Rolf, compared to I had an uphill battle with Jan. Like if it was DLGN, the starting point was here and the hill to get to was here. With Jan, the hill was here and the point to get to was here. So I think that's where like the game started to crumble. If when we were just starting to call Rolf confirm Town,
calling a Mafia confirmed Town is certainly the way to lose the game.
Yeah, we were the two confirmed Towns and myself were kind of got a little lazy on Rolf, and I think that's where we kind of threw ourselves.
Well, let's give RJ's due to say that like he didn't just throw over, like he wasn't just trolling, like his sacrifice meant something.
It did.
So moving on, day 5, to nobody's surprise, Steve dies at night. Killing Steve over Rolo, does it matter? Like you're killing one of the two confirmed Towns.
I would never leave Rolo alive. I could reason with Steve, perhaps, but I knew the entire time I could not get through to Rolo that game. I tried. I talked with him.
Yeah, Rolo was
20 minutes.
Rolo was like just tunneled in. Okay, DLGN's just dead next, and that in my head was like the other thing that like made me think DLGN probably shouldn't die here first. I end up voting anyway for honestly bad reasons, if I'm being honest with myself. But I think that. But at the time, I'm just like, I really want to kill Jan first because DLGN has all these things that I just don't see pointing to him being Mafia based on my thought process. And
it's rough, right? Because Jan no votes me, so like potentially that's a team now, and
that's where I got worried. That's where I got worried was Jan was no voting on you. I'm just like the world of 2 with DLGN and Jan like still exists.
But we talked about it earlier. It's
you're never living in a world of 2. There's no way you're still thinking there's 2 Mafia there. I mean, I know the rant, so I'm giving you my 2020 hindsight. Listen to it carefully.
You never know, dude. The game is what past the 2-hour mark at this point. Towns are exhausted. They're mentally fatigued.
That's why I don't really blame them. I don't really blame them for executing RJ that day instead of like some other
trying to big brain,
some other like F3 potential like sleeper agent Mafia, right? Like it's very hard to make that pivot if you've already got one in your sights, and even if you're going to the F3 that they've constructed for you, that's still better than going into an F3 Mafia who tried to be too smart, right?
Yeah.
Because by that point, a lot of us had. Because by that point, I think I think most of us that were still alive at that point played in game 1 as well.
Yep. So this is like your 4th hour of Mafia.
Yeah. So by that point, we were like 4 hours deep. Like, sometimes you just want to easy mode it.
Anyway, DOGN gets firm mode. I don't even know who you firm mode DOGN, but the vote is pushed.
It was Rolo, and I think Rolf seconded, I think.
Maybe. DOGN dies, but let's listen to something from DOGN's firm mode, because he eventually finds Jan and says it's Rolf. So here, you've been flip-flopping, like, I can find you the spot if you continue maintaining that you were always on Jan, like, being down. Like, there's one spot in which you start wavering, and it's because of Jan's inactivity. And you said as much during the cast, but during the commentary so far. But let's hear DOGN start a formal.
I literally think it's just Rolf. I'm never voting on Dave. I just can't vote on Dave, and I think that Jan is actually, he's got too much, like, vigor. And Rolf is, on the other hand, is, like, kind of stumbling. And I don't think that he is Townie. I think he got town read by the Mafia. I think that's basically confirmed at this point, that Rolf was town read by the Mafia. And I think that they were doing it to bring a partner in. Because what did Rolf have to do to get town red this game? After being a potato in game 1 and having 0 energy and just claiming sick during his day 1 formal, he came out this game and was happy.
He claimed sick and then he was happy. Anyway, I mean, props to Diogen. He calls out the entire game and he gets lynched.
Feels bad, man. Yeah.
So Jan doesn't vote on you, so props to Jan for actually figuring out that you're town. Like, there's nothing we can like. I think if we can say something about Jan's game, this game is that he went inactive when he shouldn't have, and he should have I think really picked it up in day 5 if he found Diogen before that.
Like I talked with Jan extensively post game, even when Ryu turned the stream off, and Jan told me when I said I wanted to lynch Jan first, the light bulb went off in Jan's head. Dave might not vote on DLGN just to vote on me, and that's actually better for town. So Jan even reading the room, knowing if I go to final 3 I lose. He also read the room to think if Dave actually doesn't vote here, we might still win.
Yep.
So
again, it's not who's the mafia; it's who's the best kill, so we can win the game.
Yeah.
I think this is just a question of Diogen and Jan finding each other. And again, I think if there's anything to say about Jan here, is that he felt doomed for some reason. He carried that over into day 5, and then he didn't find Diogen in time in order to Thunderdome Rolf. If it's 2v1 on Rolf, I really don't think you actually think they're both mafia there. But
yeah.
Because it's softer, because it's not actually guns out, let's kill that person. Maybe. That's what I felt. If there's anything to say about this game again, maybe it's this. Jan and Diogen just not finding each other. Yeah. In time. Yep. So, we go to day 6. Everybody's favorite Gimp dies, and he's not mafia, obviously. Dave Dub gets immunity, literally, 20-30 seconds into the day. Jan Firm was your first time,
I actually got immunity in more time than I should have. And that should have tipped me off that Rolf was mafia.
Sure. You get 0 out of 3 votes. I actually didn't watch this, but I was told that nobody voted on you.
Yeah, no one voted. Usually when there's someone that you're just pretty sure is town, and you know what your Thunderdome is, you just give that guy immunity.
Give them immunity. If they're mafia, you cry and you don't waste your time.
It's basically if you give me immunity. It's just if you give me immunity and I win, I probably deserve the game anyway. But it was a scenario where Rolf actually was hesitant to just give me immunity, and that's where I started to. That's where the climb started to happen, where I was getting close to Jan. It's actually somewhat a mafia tell to not just instantly give a not confirmed town immunity, a technically not confirmed town immunity, because even though in that scenario Rolf should have just known I was town and just immediately be fine, give it forward. Rolf hesitating is usually a more mafia trick because they're trying to look like they're thinking rather than a town mindset, which is just all right, let's just give Dave immunity, screw it.
As mafia, I think you usually want to pick your fight and not have the fight picked for you. So Jan picking the fight with Rolf is pure genius. I really like that play. Just being okay, I'm gonna choose Dave Dub, let's tango. I'm picking a fight with you. Because I think it gives you more town equity than anything else. And again, it's my phone, blah-di-da-di-da, but again, as Dub says, you can catch the mafia wavering there. Jan is Formoot after that, by the other 2. And there's a very interesting moment I want to bring your attention to. I'm not sure if this is something that you usually see.
The only word Diogen fucked up as town would be if Kevin is town and RJ Ryu is the team with you. That's the only that's a word, but
RJ Ryu. RJ Ryu go together.
RJ Ryu is a variable team. It's either that or Kevin.
They both voted on Kevin. They both voted on Colin.
So listen to how much Rolf remembers about the votes of supposedly the 2 teammates that he has. It's almost as if, first of all, he's bouncing off of Jan, which is what you don't want to do as mafia, as town. You want to be burying that person. You don't want to be having a peaceful discussion with them.
You're not solving with them, right?
Yeah, you're not solving with that person.
you're stuck in the mindset that you're trying to beat town, and you're forgetting that the other person is literally confirmed mafia to you.
Yes, Rolf knows that Jan has to be mafia, and Rolf is solving the game with Jan. It makes no sense. Absolutely no sense. Like I watched that. You can go back to the VOD and see what my comments were during the game. I believed Rolf.
I did.
Up until that point, because at that point you know that Rolf is not in the mindset of that person has to be mafia.
It happens quite often. It's very difficult to play a Final 3 and like turn certain things off and take that like air of superiority against the person you know is town there. It's
4 hours of mafia.
Yeah,
you have to switch modes pretty drastically there.
Yes,
you do.
To a world where now it's solved, and I just have to make the case for like why it's solved, rather than there's still some more to figure out.
There's still some things to think.
Yeah.
Aylin, have you found yourself in this position where in live play you're sitting next to somebody who cop checked you and you're mafia and you're like you're shouting in their face, "I'm not mafia," even though you shouldn't be arguing to them. You should be arguing to literally everybody else in the room. But you have to convince that person.
As a mafia, you have to like undo the damage of knowing like the state of the game and make your argument to the right people. In the right way.
If Dave had picked up on this, I would have bowed my imaginary hat to you, because I think that solved the entire 3-hour game in one moment.
Like I said, that Final 3 for me was already going to be hard because there was already a hill to climb for Jan that was like a lot taller than it was. And I was starting to get there because it's like, okay, the hesitation happened, and then the reminder of the column thing happened, and then thinking more and more about it. And Jan gave a good formal, and I give him credit to it. I was almost there, but in that, it's so hard to be in that moment and be like, and be like, I can easily no vote here, but everything is telling me to vote here as well. So it's like it was a very hard situation. In the end, I decided to vote on Jan. Trust earlier thoughts, not second guess myself, and it turned out to lose the game. But that's one thing I think I need to realize, that Final 3 is still just a whole different game, a whole different animal. And I think Jan played Final 3 phenomenally. Not that Rolf played Final 3 badly, but I think Jan I think if the rest of the game didn't happen and I had to think just on that Final 3, Jan blew Rolf out of the water, to be honest. And if the rest of the game didn't happen, it's probably easier to be like, okay, Jan's town and Rolf is mafia. But again, hindsight, I guess.
Yep.
I think also like just a little bit more on the point that like throughout the game you're building this sort of, I confuse inductive and deductive, but you're sort of like you're trying to reason your way to the conclusion up till the very last day, where then you're trying to say this is obviously the conclusion and this is like now why it was obvious that this was the conclusion, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like a switch in the style of argument that you're trying to make, right? You're no longer trying to figure out what the facts indicate. You already know what the conclusion is.
You know the conclusion is, yeah.
You know the conclusion already.
And now you have to find the clues.
And you have to find the facts that support it.
Yeah.
And
it's
No, go ahead, Dojian.
I was just gonna say, and it's interesting, right? Because your style is changing, but it's also presenting that case, it comes across differently. It's almost a mafia thing to be finding the evidence to support your agenda. Like you at that point, you as town have an agenda. You have somebody, who's mafia, you want to push them, and you are literally finding reasons and pulling anything that you remember out of your hat to get them lynched. And it messes with your head. Final 3 is intense.
Yep. Final 3 is probably the hardest thing to do as mafia, I think. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I don't get there very often just because whatever, but to people who do get, I also think that there's like a valid thing, which is that like it's usually the people who would suffer the most in Final 3 that get to Final 3, if you know what I'm trying to say.
By design?
By design. But it's not about struggling. I'm specifically using the word suffer here, because it's not about your ability as mafia player at this point, especially in these situations where it's a literal 50-50. It's about your capacity to remember 3 hours of a game. Sure. When you don't have like the like comfort of being in your room, not playing the game, taking notes, and like watching clips during the night and stuff like that. So I think that like Final 3 by design is the most grunning experience in the game. Like, it's not Final 5 with 2 Mafia, for example, where you like the Mafia have to push to win, or like have an option to defer it to later. But it's the Final 3, you're the final vote, and then you just lose it.
Like not only is it trying to remember every fact to, and especially as Mafia, it's not even just like remembering every fact to paint this person you know is not Mafia just as Mafia. It's also your ability to just straight up out town someone who knows their town. Yep. Like it's basically your goal to be like, you are a town, but I'm going to out town the hell out of you, and you're going to die and not me.
Well, it's tough. It's literally a marathon. It's longer than a marathon, and everybody is inches from the finish line, and you've got the weight of your entire team on your shoulders, right? The Mafia have 2 dead partners at this point. The town have 10 dead partners on like behind them at this point. Everybody is waiting for you to fuck up, and it's tough. It all comes.
You have like pretty good recall of the facts that actually matter to your case.
Right.
It's hard after 3 hours.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. And then the game ends.
And then the game ends. Town loses.
Look at this solitary grey blob. Look at this solitary grey blob on your screen. He outlasted everybody. He outsmarted the smartest Mafia players in Super Mafia All-Stars.
Sole survivor.
By Hollywooding the shit out of them.
The Holly Rolf, he did it.
Holly Rolf.
I mean, GG's to everybody in that game. I had a blast watching it at 1.5 to 2 speed just so I could get this show on the road.
I think aside from like a brief moment during day 2 that people say was miserable, I didn't find that miserable, but whatever. I thought it was one of the most fun. I thought it was one of the more fun games I played in recent memory. So
it was well played. It was a good game.
It was a very competitive game, I think. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything Twitch chat wants to know? Can we just look through that? Aileen, can you send me the widget for our game?
Mm-hmm.
And then I hope you can take points so I can take a breather.
Should players read Twitch chat during a game? So they, it's crowdsourcing, and like you should have power in numbers, and so people have an unbiased perspective, perhaps in Twitch chat, hopefully, and it probably on aggregate helps, but like I don't know, maybe. Some people are like
it's something I never do because mostly because I think the fun in Mafia is your ability to read the game, not cheaping everyone else's ability to read the game. Yeah. But it's also another thing where it's like, and this is an advantage in us playing video Mafia in the Twitch format compared to like say live Mafia or in a forum where you essentially have full access to like a spectator chat, and generally spectators tend to see things that players in games don't. So there's like kind of a 50-50 aspect. There's kind of an aspect to it where it's like Twitch chat in theory could be more right than you are. So it's like if you have free access to that, you can use it. But
I mean, we have so obviously it's like, first of all, let's talk about how stupid it is that like there's literally no way to enforce whether somebody watches Twitch or not, regardless of the game you're playing. Okay, so let's just get that out of the way. In Last Club, we've just said you can be in the stream just for the viewer number, because as we know, like in every Mafia stream, at least 30% of the people watching are the players, and that's fine, because Mafia is not that popular. But apart from that, that's what we're trying to do here. So if you're thinking, what are we trying to do here? We're trying to bring good quality content to people. Anyway, so like we've said, you can be in Twitch, but you shouldn't be reading the chat while you're live or watching the game while you're live. Yeah. Because like people are going to have different perspectives than you. It's more for the player's protection than anything else. And
part of the game, like it's designed around the fact that, like if you want a record of everything that's happened in the game, play Flora Mafia, where your words are set in stone and like everybody can go back to your post from day one and read it.
Or use this.
Right, exactly. In Video Mafia, it's assumed that you're living in the moment and you're gathering reads, and you can you focus on certain voices, and if you miss things, you miss things. You shouldn't. A lot of people strongly believe
that's part of it, right? That you miss things, right?
Yeah. It's a very natural social setting. Yeah.
Diogen, can you do the Last Club game too, or do you got a bounce?
I'll try and stick around. Yeah.
Okay, so Alien, can you also send the widget in the comment chat so that Diogen and Dub can open it?
I have it.
Dub, you have it?
You may not have the most recent one.
Yeah,
Sorry,
just send it again to them.
2336 it ends in?
No, now it's 65.
65E.
Yep. It just has a few more things in there.
Alright.
Yeah.
Okay, so Alien, take it away. Oh, I was mod for that game, so I want to hear what other people thought about watching this game for the first time, and then we can see how it goes.
I mean, I think for me, this game kind of shows what a house of cards the game can be, especially for the Mafia, and how things that are going well can really fall apart so quickly based on just a few critical decisions or moments in the day phases that are misplayed.
Yep. So just to outline, so I picked that game because I've been thinking about making this video about our setup in preparation for the league, which is a two-part video. Which is the first part is what differentiates this setup more than anything else, you've seen played in Video Mafia. And the answer, contrary to what Fighter might say, is not aliens, that's not the answer, Fighter. It's not just the alien.
I don't think it doesn't matter. Go ahead.
The fact is that there is way more information content in the game that's hidden from some people, but not everybody. And the tug of war is not on killing people. That's certainly the measure of whether you're winning the tug of war. But it's on how much information you're able to accumulate in a critical point of time to pull the rope towards you and get the necessary kills. So if you want to see how that goes really poorly, you should watch the game before this one, game 11. It's on our page, but game 12 was a relatively well played game from the town. You can see on the screen, the town wins. So anyway, Alien, take it away.
Yeah, so we'll start from the beginning. So thief cards are Thief and Alien, much to the relief of many players, I imagine, in retrospect. So no Alien, no third party, and no one who knows it's missing, which is interesting.
Yep.
James acts as his own tongue. We'll see a pattern of James.
I'm glad somebody else noticed.
Acting the Mafia pretty much exclusively, which is something I want to comment on in more detail later.
No, it was great.
But,
I loved it.
So James acts as his own tongue to start the game off, and Logan's random green check is on Snooze, and Rich and Timmix are prisoners. So
that was also an accident, by the way. Logan and Snooze are from the same community. Snooze is a relatively new player to Video Mafia, so lucky.
Interesting.
It was lucky.
And Rich and Timmix, of course, are mixed prisoners, so they will not die together if they're executed or killed at night, which will have some bearing on the game later. So we go into day one, and my impression of day one, and we do have a clip, is that Town didn't really have a strong sense coming out of the gate of who the Mafia were. There was a lot of confusion. There were a lot of random accusations of who the scum were. We can see that the three nominees were in fact all townspeople, which gives you a sense that...
Do you want me to play the clip?
Yeah, I think we should play the clip. It's just a little clip of, just some discussion.
Sometimes.
Mike, are you shocked at how scummy you're being read right now?
I don't know.
Okay, that's true.
I want to know why Rich is being so quiet. What do you got to say, Rich?
That dive.
Rich is a prisoner. He knows he's not getting licked.
You're like passing the ball of pressure. I think
Deflection 100.
I think Mike is Mafia back.
I really think Mike is Mafia.
I think his reaction
sometimes.
Okay.
Basically townspeople accusing other townspeople, those townspeople not reacting very well, deflecting to other townspeople.
I loved that Rich read. I wrote down the passing the ball read. I thought it was a good one. Mike,
it is a good read.
My favorite players. He's newer to me, and I think he projects a massive amount of confidence and is very strong. I'm super impressed. But this game, I'm with Rich. I was just it
was perplexing. His day one.
What is this? So
I was mesmerized.
I don't even blame Rich there personally.
I think it was it was also very blatant, right?
I don't trust this prisoner.
It's not even pretending to
It was one of those things where it's you see it happen, just no wolf just plays like this. Right? But it's
I know you are, but what am I?
it was too wolfy to be a wolf. It was incredible.
It's also very dude Mike, and I made that in a complimentary way.
Right. By the way, so just so we can interject this out there, dude Mike won the preseason. He didn't drop a single game.
Yes.
So
His
like
worst
that,
game was a tie.
Yep. That was actually pretty impressive. So I just want to put this out there. Like, nobody's hating on Dude Mike on my
Not at all.
watch, okay?
I prefaced it with a heap of praise. Like, I think he's legitimately great, and
I played with Dude Mike a few times.
And again, like these sort of
Mini Mafia, he's great. I love him.
and again, these sorts of moments on day one, like acceptable, right? Like no one really, no one really knows what's going on.
Completely.
And day one, you know nothing yet. Why not? Fuck it.
Sure, but like, let's just backtrack a bit because I think we might have some viewers who've never seen a game of ours. So let's explain a few things. So first of all, Alien, what's this deal with the prisoners? Like, why is it bad to push Rich there if you're Mike?
All right, so
why is it not acceptable from many people's
So
perspective?
it's important to clarify the rule that if the prisoners are town aligned, so they're both VT and VT.
If they're both orange.
Yes, if they're both orange and you execute one of them, A, they both die because they're both VT prisoners, and B, the Mafia gets 2 kills at night. So for the price of 1 misexecution, you can suffer up to 4 deaths. So it's quite a heavy penalty. That's
But
not
why would you want to kill the prisoners? Like,
so you might want to kill the prisoners if you're fairly convinced there's a non-town role among the two.
Because one of them is guaranteed to be a VT.
Yes.
One of them is guaranteed to be pure orange.
Right, and so it's almost like a free police check, like practically a role check on the VT if you can successfully execute a prisoner without incurring the penalty. But the downside of incurring that penalty is, of course, you might end up with like 4 people dead, which is significant. So there's a trade-off there. And
Throw yourself right at
minor detail.
It's a trade-off I like a lot, and there has been this evolving meta that prisoners just come out on day one to avoid certain kinds of mafia plays that could like take advantage of this.
It's almost by design that happened. By the way.
Almost by design. But what it does do is it also lets the mafia narrow down the PRs a little better. So at the cost of like revealing who the prisoners are, so that the mafia aren't tempted to like strategize around them, you also give the mafia a little bit more information about where the PRs are. So I think that the whole mechanic does accelerate the game a lot in terms of like where the mafia.
We like fast games. I think that's like if you compare a 3-hour Super Mafia All-Stars game in which like one person dies over 1 hour, we like to kill people very fast, and that's I think the main takeaway from like why the prisoners are in the game in the first place.
Yeah. So the 3 nominees are Mike, MKLOL, and Wisp. We didn't clip their defenses, but each of their defenses was very towny. In their own way, but like they're all townspeople. So the defenses sort of reflect that if you watch it with the hindsight, of course, that they're all townspeople. So MKLOL is executed and is not Mafia, and at this point the Mafia is doing fine.
And like, let's just make why don't we say that MKLOL is town? Like, why does it say not Mafia in the thing?
Sure. So our flips are Mafia or not Mafia, and that's specifically to sort of. Well, one is, of course, there's an alien who is neither alignment, and we don't want to... We like the ambiguity that comes from not knowing that certain roles are out of the game, just that certain people of, like, one alignment with the other are out of the game.
It's mostly because of the alien.
The alien, yeah.
Like, we don't want to give away whether the alien is still alive or dead, because it can cause some pretty hilarious moments, as you will see in this game.
And you did want to make mention of the fact, I believe, Shakespeare, that we had, like, in these defenses, MK went first, right? Projected great importance to town in his formal, like, light on the content, but, like, strongly hinted at the fact that town wants to keep him around, right? So that happens. Mm-hmm. Mike goes next, also kind of on the weaker side of his defenses, but he had a very good Rich read, so, like, he mentioned how he usually scum reads Rich, but, like, he didn't dislike him this game, and I thought that seemed very natural. But then he also said that, like, it's important for me to be around.
He also softed pretty hard.
He also softs, and then Wisp is just like the most chill guy on earth, and it's just like I don't know what's going on. Like, I kind of think the town, but like whatever. I thought he was doomed after that.
I don't know how many of these games you've watched, but there was, without like saying anything against MKLOL, like there was some. Like, again, there's some clicking going on when you put many people who play together with other people they don't play with. And there was some negative emotions associated with the previous game of MKLOL, and I think that caught up with him here.
Okay.
I think that, like, if I had to psychoanalyze everybody in this game, MKLOL was just killed because he had, like, one very weird interaction in the previous game.
I was not aware this fact existed.
Yeah. It's just interesting to me because day 2, I believe, like one of the Mafia, James, literally said that he didn't vote on MK or Mike because he thought both of them claimed PR. He literally said that. So like other people were picking up on the fact that they were softing. 2 VTs were softing day 1. Yeah, we'll see how it plays out from there.
I mean, 2 VTs were softing. 2 people picked it up because I believe, what's their name? Timix also claimed to pick it up as well.
I don't think the kill was on either of them night 1 though. So
The kill wasn't on. Well, MKLO was lynched, so it's not like the kill could be put on him. But I mean, I guess from like
the kill was on Mike. Like I'm looking at
the kill was on Mike.
So Mike successfully accomplished the one thing he needed. Like everything you've been saying about I want to catch a bullet for a PR. Mike actually did it. Congratulations, Mike.
Okay. Fair.
Not only Mike said he wanted to catch prostitution, so he somewhat didn't.
Yeah, I mean, Carson's disabling of Wisp was... I didn't poke his, brain about this in the later game, but he repeatedly disabled Wisp for some reason. Nobody knows why.
Sure. I mean, it could just be that,
like... this off this formal, mind you.
It could just be that, he knows Wisp is in Mafia, and that's good enough. Although, I keep reminding people. I keep reminding people that you can always disable yourself. If the goal is to not disable the Mafia, you can always disable yourself. Yeah. But hey, who knows? Maybe he thought this might actually be a PR as well. If we believe that they softened. So we go into night 1. Carson disables Wisp. The Mafia target Mike. So the 2 people who supposedly softened PR are both sort of
Well, Mike I don't think Wisp softened.
Okay. So anyway, Mike...
This was the only one not to soft, I'm pretty sure.
Ah, okay. Got it. James axes another Mafia's tongue, so he just started making the rounds. Logan checks Rich, so this is important. So Logan checks one of the prisoners, which is not Mafia. Now, of course, that doesn't necessarily mean Rich is the townsperson. But it
doesn't even mean that he's not Mafia, because the prostitute checks is not Mafia.
But it does mean that if Rich is bad, he's either alien or prostitute, and that's it.
Yep. So Logan takes a page out of my book when I was playing Cop in the setup, the 2 times I think I wrote Cop in the community.
Don't tell me you do this. Don't tell me you do this.
I do this.
He goes on a parade of softing the entire day.
Okay, no, I don't do that. I would have probably come out there, but I do check the prisoners, and I'll explain why.
Yes,
because,
I agree.
Okay, so we were talking about this engineered Final 3, Final 5 in the SMAS game. The prisoners are probably gonna make 95% of the final days of the game, whatever they are. The prisoners, if you don't kill them day 1, they will decide the game in the end. One way or the other. If you don't deal with them in time, you will have to deal with them eventually. So having checks on the prisoners is super important. I'm not sure he needed to check Timix to confirm that a night later. Spoiler alert, Logan doesn't die here. But certainly checking one of the prisoners, especially the one you read as more towny, is probably good for you here. Just so you can say, this person is towny, you should listen to them, and maybe kill the other prisoner when the time comes.
Yeah, so prisoners are always just that looming, that wrench, the potential wrench in your grand plan, and your game is going well, and then you decide that, hey, one of these people might be scum, and you lynch them, and everything goes to hell.
Then you lose 4 people, and you're like,
that's no big deal. Right. So I totally agree that checking in there is beneficial, and
it's not the only strategy. Obviously you can do other things with it, but it's certainly a good way to approach the game.
But one subtle difference is I think you check the scum, the when you read more scummy, because if you do get a red check, then the others are pseudo confirmed town as a result, because they can't both be Mafia. If you get a green check on one, the other is not necessarily.
The red check is definitely way more helpful.
Getting a red check, I think means a lot more. But if you get a green check on the prisoners, I think it's okay, well, one prisoner's not getting touched, and you can kind of read the other one if you want to. You can get another cop check if you need it, but at the same time, clearing one of them so that you don't accidentally slip on killing 4 towns in a single loop. Probably a good idea.
Yep.
So.
Okay. I mean, maybe I'm with DOG, and I'm not sure. I still feel that taking the more towny person just puts more pressure on the Mafia. That's what I'm going for here. But maybe you're right. Again, there are many valid ways to play this. Alan, you said something about, what was it? When somebody asks you what's the best way to play this, when there's ambiguity, then, it's a good mechanic, right?
Yes.
We've been talking about this.
When there isn't consensus.
Yeah. So
when something isn't obviously better, that's generally good.
I've been flamed in this position for like checking the prisoners too. Like I think Joey, Rob, one of the two of them was flaming me. Maybe Kevin. I'll have to go and check.
Sure.
But when there's no consensus, that's good because it opens strategic variability to the setup. Early saves, Mike.
Yep. So early saves, Mike. Probably something you want to do generally. Again, depends on what kind of read you have. But if you believe Mike
Is a
soft
PR, yeah.
All right, so we wake up, no one has died. We have Spectrum, who is axed. And here, something really, I mean, various things happen during the day, which we haven't clipped. But I think for me, the main thing that happens here is that like the town sort of has this consensus that we're all going to nominate Spectrum so that he can be the first one to talk. And then based on what he says, we'll try to nominate like some more people, right? Because this is how the rules.
And then they screw it up.
And then they screw it up
by accident. By accident.
Yes, because four people do not vote at Spectrum. And two of those people vote at Myth, actually.
Yes, so like the background, what's the background here? So the background is that Timix and Wisp vote on Myth. And Timix is in the same Liars Club, like Live Liars Club, as Myth. But Wisp is a big question mark there. Like it's mind-boggling because he literally kills Myth. So let's do you want me to play the clip now?
Yeah, let's play that clip. I think it's pretty instructive.
Okay, so here we go again. Yes, your answer is I am the cop again. My Night 0 green was on Logan. Last night I checked Wisp because I voted on him and it did not go over. So
Hold
I
up.
thought to check him and he came up as a green.
I might have put the wrong.
So
No, you put the red one.
That are not the Ellie or Dude Mike would be Logan and Wisp. I didn't get a scum read on Myth. I don't think he's scum, but again, we're in a very similar situation.
So we're done with the clip. So it certainly feels bad, man, to green check the real cop.
Yeah, like that was my first. That was my first observation was because I missed that when I watched it the first time. But when I rewatched the VOD again, hearing him at Night 0 Logan, and then knowing that Logan's going to end up claiming cop, it's such a feels bad because it's like, where do you, especially because Spectrum was like already kind of fumbling with his claim a little bit. It was one of those things where it's just like, where do I go now?
There was also significant guilt tripping for him because the previous game, Town lost in a catastrophic manner because he was the cop, he wasn't believed, they agonized over killing him for 3 days, they finally killed him, and they lost the game. Yes. So there was certainly like a calculated move from Spectrum to at least try to like be like, I guilt trip you very softly here, and we're gonna get there. But yeah, I mean, his claim is not bad in hindsight because he even convinces Myth to vote for himself. Like almost everybody votes at Myth in the end, if not everybody.
I agree that like the play is correct, especially because it seemed like people were like guiding. Because I remember at some point it seemed like someone was guiding Spectrum into the claim. I think it might have been James actually was guiding him into the claim.
It's possible, yeah. I remember that.
But it's kind of unfortunate that the claim turned out to be kind of the turning point where things started to go wrong for Mafia. But in the moment, it looked really good.
So I'm gonna play devil's advocate a little bit. So okay, so he's in his defense up against a town. The town is going second, but think about what's going to happen, right? What vote logic? Let's say Spectrum does get lynched. What vote logic does the town have to use? He almost universally gets nominated just purely because he was the axe target and they want to listen to him speak. So it's not like he got pushed on focally by a couple people who are going to be clear for this. So if he does flip Mafia, he's just the killing Mafia, second of all. So it's not like the Mafia are losing a whole lot. And third, say, so you get the other person lynched, their VT or whatever, you go into the next day, maybe you're in a counterclaim situation. If you do lose that, you're not the bomb. And so if you don't die, well, we saw how that played out. But if you die, you don't have the option of being the bomb who's typically your fake claimer who can retaliate, right, and just get the cop out of the game. So it's a very risky play.
Yeah, I agree it's a risky play, but like having played enough with Spectrum, I know Spectrum assumes anytime he's in a formal, he's like just dead. So for him, it was like a play of like, I'm going to claim here. I've already had the claim basically set up for me. I'm going to claim here. I'm going to survive. I'm going to keep my team at 4 Mafia in a situation where Town at the moment is getting like not really rolled because they got the mech save on Dude Mike, but they're in a kind of weaker position and they're going to need to lynch another Town if I claim here. Mm-hmm. So like I can kind of see Spectrum's head being like, okay, I want to survive here, keep Town in a good position, and it helped that a Town was up with him instead of like, okay, now Town can pick from everyone else and maybe hit another partner.
I see, yeah.
Now just like I can get the one Town killed just by claiming here.
I want to suggest maybe another alternative, which is to do something like counterclaim Ellie's doctor claim by saying he didn't save or something like that, and saying that there's an activated alien, something to that effect. The reason is that like once you claim police, if you're not believed, you get executed, and if you are believed, there's a very good chance you get disabled, which is in fact what happened, right? And maybe you can argue that like the time lost by getting disabled is not worth the cost of staying alive for that one extra day, and then like having the entire Mafia team sort of have to work around. But
if you go with your play, you still get disabled.
Yeah, so this is just an idea I came up with. Like,
but you can claim to be doctor with save on somebody else.
With the save on someone else, yeah.
That's the other consequence that we haven't really made mention is, yes, you make yourself a prime prostitute target that night.
As a reminder, the prostitute, just to remind people, just to remind people, the prostitute doesn't know who the other Mafia are.
Right, so
what I'm trying to go for is like a claim that like actually claims something so you don't get executed, but also a claim that's not worth disabling.
Hunter.
Maybe Hunter.
Literally, that's the only thing, right? Because otherwise, you are going to
or a doctor who's saved.
Okay.
Here, but maybe like maybe
you can even okay. I'm just gonna throw this one more out there because I've done it as alien and I've done it as Mafia and I've done it as Town. Claim unactivated alien. Say like I'm not on your team. You shouldn't be killing me because then you lose like even more time. You should be killing Myth here.
For me, that's too radical a suggestion, okay. But I see where you're going.
It's not gonna fly.
Because like people do want to get rid of the alien.
I think there's like some third party play where like that works, but it's like it's a very low. I think it's a very low win situation because it's just like eventually people are just playing around you, and it's just like eventually your time is going.
They know you're not on their team, but like they have to actually find your teammates before they can kill you.
Yeah, eventually. Eventually, it's one of those things where it's like eventually your time is going to come. It feels like it's a very
sure. I agree with this. I'm just saying, like just outlining all the possibilities that they're not just the cop plan, right?
Noted. I'm thinking about this from the same perspective as I'm thinking of this from the same perspective as like when a serial killer claims to be like, "I'll help you," but just know I'm not on your side. It's like, okay, you've given yourself a clock. Cool, nice, whatever.
Okay. I think Myth dies. Myth is not Mafia. I mean, I don't think. I know. And we go on to night 2. Carson disables Spectrum. Bad move. Bad move. The doctor is out of the game. The doctor is out of the game. Why are you disabling?
But you fault him for it, right? Like, so now you know that your Mafia partner claimed just to get that VT lynched and cost himself a night kill and potentially also out himself as the fake the fake cop. It's what did he actually gain?
I think given that the doctor saved, it's like less excusable, right? Like if there's still a doctor, you need to like nullify the police because he's not going to die for sure.
Yeah.
Given that like under the world where you assume Spectrum is the actual police and the doctor has saved, then.
I think at this point you just say like...
There's also a benefit to getting checked as the prostitute, which is a possibility that you leave open if you don't disable the actual police.
Sure.
I think this kind of breaks the Mafia because, again, the Mafia is about to be under so much pressure. Again, let's just backtrack. Let me just hover over the people who are Town or have the potential to clear themselves as Town. Okay, let's start with Chad, who's the hunter. Then we have Mike, who is saved. We have Ellie. And we have a policeman or two, like somewhere out there, with checks. We have the prisoners, one of whom is VT. Like, do you see how little space there is for the remainder of the Mafia to exist?
Yeah.
So
doing so well, yeah, the numbers are tight.
If you're prostitute in these situations particularly, like you probably just want to self-disable. Like this is unique to our setup. I don't think other groups do it this way. But you can do any action to yourself. Mafia can kill Mafia. Axe can axe themselves. Axe can axe teammates. Prostitute can disable herself.
And if you really wanted to, you could check yourself as police officer. Probably not very insightful.
No.
I didn't know that was a possibility.
From Carson's perspective, you're just like, okay, this dude just claimed cop. I mean, I might as well make the play. Which that's the one thing I think Spectrum probably didn't think about was the possibility of him getting prostituted.
I think
from both perspectives, it's like Spectrum probably didn't think about it, and then Carson just like, this guy might be my mafia partner. I don't think he thought that either. So
yeah, I think it was just like it's a gut reaction, and I think normally it's a correct gut reaction because that's like what you are designed to do as a
textbook mafia.
But I think in this case, like the situational factors necessitate a little bit more thought.
Just let the mafia kill them. And like I think this point is a good point to segue the thing about the actual setup. So like one thing we hear a lot is that this setup is all about mechanics, the desert too short, la-di-da-di-da. But there's like a specific payoff if you can think on your feet strategically in like very fast pace, even during the night, to like not like fumble the play, to make the like, how should we say, the best EV play like under very limited information, like with all the mechanics going on in the game. So like if you're thinking, man, it's like, sure, you always want to disable the policeman, that's clearly wrong here, right? And you have to evaluate every action you take from a strategic standpoint as well. And I think this is like very well exemplified by this one specific action, which is Carson disabling Spectrum.
Don't forget the Axe update. So this is day 3 now.
The Mafia are disabled. James axes Timmix.
Now here I want to point out as well that I think this is also like a blunder, right? Because
you're taking your teammates out of the game, which is
exactly you're James. You know that Spectrum just claimed police, and there very well may be a counterclaim the next day, right? So shouldn't you try to get your axe onto someone who might be that counterclaim?
Might counterclaim him. Yeah,
you want a voice in this town. Yeah, you are
right?
forcing all your teammates into
silence. Yeah.
And you know, Mike is not the policeman. I'm pretty sure at this point. Because Mike would have claimed...
do Mike claim BT on date?
And you know Rich is not police.
So,
because
yeah,
he's a prisoner.
a prisoner. So what... Okay, let's just cover over this. So, it could be Snooze. It could be Logan. It could be Wisp. Or it could be Carson. So that's 4. Instead of going for the 1 in 4 to find the real policeman...
Yeah, Wisp claimed that PR as far as I'm concerned. Day 2, Snooze was pushing very hard against Logan. That was her only scum read. So, like, there was...
so you're saying you have an almost 1 in 2 to
pretty much
the real policeman.
1 in 2, 1 in 3, yeah.
But instead, you're axing your teammates who are getting red checked. And they can defend themselves. And like, what?
Yes, you were voluntarily making yourself defenseless when the axe is, of course, like a very proactive role to stifle free speech, you know? So, yeah.
Well, I mean,
so I think the combination of those two things, like Spectrum being disabled by Carson and then the axing, like, the combination of those two things, I think, really broke the Mafia's back here. The game that was otherwise going fine, even with Spectrum's police claim, which, like, maybe there are, like, higher EV plays, like claiming Hunter, claiming Doctor Who saved, that kind of thing. Even then, you know, there are ways to work around it if these things don't happen on night 2.
And Logan checks the last prisoner, which, again, I think it's a valid play. Town is so far ahead, and by far ahead, I mean they're almost losing the game, that he can afford to just keep checking the prisoners. And luckily for him, like, he gets complete information about what's going on, because he finds Timmix's Mafia, which automatically means his previous check on Rich is always pure. Rich is always VT. Good on Logan. He, again, like, will remind you in a second what he said after the game. But nobody dies. We're on day 3.
And I think it's worth seeing what Logan said.
Yeah, it's the start of the day. I hope you clipped that part.
Yes.
Okay, guys, listen. I am claiming top. And I've got 3 checks, baby. I got a green check on Rich. That was night 1. I got a green check on Snooze. That was night 0. And last night I got a red check. That's a Mafia check on Timmix. Prisoners solved for you. Timmix is the Mafia. Rich is the Vanilla Town. Spectrum is lying and was roll blocked by the prostitute. Bam, bam, bam. My breadcrumb, by the way, is when I was saying yesterday, I think I'm really right about my reads. 100% correct. I found one of 2.
again, if you're looking at faces, first look at Carson, who is completely like, shit, I disabled the Mafia, right? Then look at James, who's like, shit, we actually are out of the game now. It's just such a pivotal moment. It's, how should I put it? It's because Logan comes in so strongly, right? Logan doesn't wait for 2.5 minutes. Like, this day started at 4 minutes. Logan has been speaking for 30 seconds straight. Like, from 4:47 to 4:17. He just comes in and he's bam, 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 bam. Here the Mafia. Here's a bomb. Or like, here's a prisoner Mafia. Here's an innocent prisoner. Here's like my friend who you can't read, who I randomly got as my Night Zero. It's just perfect. It's just like, it silences the entire Zoom. Nobody knows how to react because everybody's just reflecting on their own mistakes on the Mafia side. Instead of being like, okay, this might be fake, right? Like, let's evaluate. Let's start floating the narrative around that this is fake. No, you've taken your teammate out of the game, the one who got red checked.
The Mafia who got red checked cannot fight. Spectrum was like in such a dumbfounded situation because it's like
you can see it on the screen. It's like this.
Yeah, because he should know from his fake claim the only thing he can think is Logan is like the prostitute or the alien, but like in that spot, it's like Spectrum was just dumbfounded. He's just like, the guy I Night Zero checked claimed cop. This is disastrous.
Yeah, I mean, he can very well claim that Logan is the alien going for the win here. Right? And he does claim that eventually. Like,
here's the problem with that. Why I think prostitute is always what you have to be pushing, is because if he is the alien and he just gave 3 green checks,
no.
He's almost.
He gave a red check and 2 green checks.
Oh, sorry. Yes, 2 green, 1 red. The probability of I don't want to actually calculate it, but getting that actually correct is not the greatest, right? And so the Mafia would know that you are the alien, and there are 4 of them alive who are not going to want to lynch you ever.
Sure, but the narrative has to be
the alien.
The narrative has to be, I'm the cop. Logan is not Mafia. We're not killing him here, but his checks are bullshit. I was disabled last night, but I'm not the Mafia, and the alien actually got activated because they proxied me. Because Logan
I think you have to push prostitute because the alien wouldn't out themselves to 3 Mafia or to 4 Mafia by giving fake checks.
Something like you weren't disabled, and you make up one more check. Because the fact that you're saying you're disabled and that there was no death at night, a lot of people will again, you don't know for sure that the alien is activated or not, but it is more likely that the prostitute disabled the Mafia.
Sure.
I think in the minds of many people. So maybe you can say you have another check and you try to explain why.
Yep. What I think people should be taken out of this is you shouldn't be dead in the water. Whichever one of these narratives you run with, whatever narrative you try to contrive, once this happens to you, you should just be like, snap, okay, I got you. You're exactly this because my town POV makes only this perspective possible.
And I think this speaks to the utility of having a night phase where you get to reflect, right? This is what you should be. Yes. It's not just you do your action, and this isn't to say that the players did that or didn't do that. I'm just saying as a general point that
you go make yourself a sandwich, you talk to your wife.
The night phase is for you, to emotionally and logically prepare yourself for the onslaught that's going to hit you the next day, right? And just having all the facts straight so that when unexpected things happen, you know how the person who actually has your role would respond to them.
Yeah, and it is preseason, to be fair. Some of these people are not, don't have.
You're going into the night sitting on a fake police claim. You're like, okay, what is the story going to be when I wake up? What am I going to do when the real police comes out?
And you're just like this. You're letting the person who's counter-claiming you, who you green checked, and you're sitting like this.
Yeah, you're like,
And you're sitting there like, huh.
Very peculiar situation we got here, my friend. I mean, again, no shade thrown at anyone here. I think Spectrum was emotionally exhausted after that first game because that first game was cancer.
And credit to Spectrum because having played with Spectrum on DM and mini Mafia, Spectrum does not fake claim very often. So the fact that he went on the limb to take that chance, I mean, good on him.
He said as much. He said as much after the game.
And I think this is anyone can fake claim. It's the follow up that matters, right? Anyone can sacrifice a piece of chess, but it's the next 3 moves that are going to determine whether you win or not, right? So it's the same sort of thing for me here.
Yep.
The follow-up has to work as well.
And the follow-up didn't work at all. So we just move on to the next item in
It
the
was a
list.
follow down.
So okay,
Real
so
down.
let us remember what the situation here is. Right? We have Rich green, Timix red. We have Snooze green, but like Snooze is a conditional green because she could be the prostitute. Spectrum is almost out at Mafia. Logan is believed widely to be the police officer. Ellie is believed to be the doctor. Mike is believed to be town.
I think the 3 Mafia are added at this point.
The
One
only-
other thing that occurred that day was Ellie presented a scum pool of James, Snooze, and Carson, and it asked for the
And
hunter
Chad.
to claim.
And Chad.
And there was and Chad, and they got the hunter CC, right? So there's one.
Let me
So
just play that
let's play that clip. We have it right here.
So our
It's just-
scum pool is Dave, Chad, Carson, and Snooze. If one of them is Hunter, they should claim, yeah?
I'm
Yeah,
Hunter.
but I mean, I got a green check.
I'll just start it over again because this is exactly what we just said. So listen to Ellie very carefully. Now the sound is a bit low, but listen to Ellie very
So
carefully.
our scum pool is Dave, Chad, Carson, and Snooze. If one of them is Hunter, they should claim, yeah?
I'm Hunter.
Yeah, but I mean, I got a green check on
Okay,
Snoop
cool.
also, right?
Oh,
So
cool.
like,
So
I cloud claim Dave's claim. I'm Hunter.
Hey, more scum!
Hey, more scum!
Is it auto?
yeah,
Hey.
yeah, I wish we got to figure it out.
I mean,
And just look at Carson. Carson is just leaning back, being like, oh. Like, I think this was... So, again, what's the story here? You've put so much pressure on the
Feels
Mafia.
bad.
The doctor has saved. You didn't attempt Mafia suicide on night 1, right? The town just has all the momentum in the game, despite losing 2 townspeople. A, because you couldn't kill 2 nights in a row, right? But B, also because the narratives are just not being presented out there. And why is that? Because you're down literally 1/3 of your team that like probably could have saved you there. Right? Timix could have been like in your face, being like, I'm not Mafia, let me out. So
like it was a scenario where, and like I almost want to figure out why James, like I know why that James needed to take a leap of faith considering his team was about to get like somewhat dumpstered, but then it just like, but him claiming there just made it from bad to worse, and all because he knows the hunter's still just alive, so it's like.
well, but like just look at, even if James, okay, so you get to eventually the point where you have to make a decision between James, Carson, and Wisp.
Yeah.
And Chad, but like one of them is probably the hunter, right?
One of them says
So
hunter.
the shitty thing about the hunter is it's like a VG. It always resolves itself without voting at all, and that's fine. Also, Alien, it's getting quite dark in your room. Do you think you can turn a light on?
Yes, sir.
It like once James gets counterclaimed, the game is like at that point you have the POE of just 2 guys. Spectrum's basically outed, and the game's like kind of just over for you.
Yeah, I mean the last Mafia is Carson, who also outs himself at some point. Like there's a specific call, like I think on day 4.
Yeah, well, like to be fair, Carson was like because at that point it's just like you believe Logan, you have Rich's town.
Oh yeah, Carson doesn't stand a chance if he doesn't do a gambit. But like props to Carson for actually trying, right? That's
he tried the gambit. It was a good try, but like Carson was basically in a 1-on-1 with Wisp, given how everything then ended up turning out. So.
Yep.
I unfortunately didn't get any clips from that day, but
that's fine. I mean, the nominees are Timix. Timix dies. She's Mafia. Timix bombs Logan, who's pretty much solved the game for the town.
Yep.
And everybody sleeps. Carson disables Wisp again. God knows why. Like again, you should be disabling yourself. But like Wisp is probably not
just
Mafia.
Slightly safer. But whatever.
It was a little interesting. Like Timix took the line that Logan was VT claiming. If you listen to her defense
or
there.
prisoner. I mean, or Aelin, my bad.
No, well,
during the defense, you mean, not during the show.
Yeah, she went on about how it's meta. It's weird that the meta has progressed to this point where like all these VTs are claiming instead of just Mafia or the actual cop, and so it was this really strange line, and she got majority died, bombed Logan, took Logan out.
I don't think it matters, but it's,
probably not.
Yeah, it's not that great of a line.
It's like you could have taken a more believable line, like saying he was the alien, or just calling him the prostitute when Shakespeare wouldn't. But like at the same time, it's like she's always just dead. Yep. So no matter what line, like we can theorize which line is better. At the end of the day, she's probably just dead there, most of the time. So
and again, without the ability to speak that whole day, like
Yeah.
Imagine if Logan is axed.
It was done.
You're already halfway, Doug. Yeah.
If Logan is axed there, the game is completely different. But Logan wasn't axed, and that kind of thanks.
Or even just like if Timix is not axed, the game is still
just any town.
Right? Just like any town. Even like Ellie, right?
You let town speak, they maybe win the game.
Ellie took charge in his own way, right? Asking for the hunter to come out.
He forced James to misplay.
Forcing any actual PR.
Any whatsoever.
All right.
I mean,
and then the last thing is again, James axes his own tongue.
Yeah, I think he's given up at that point. I think that's like a surrender play.
He's just like, I have an axe. It sucks. Like, axe out.
Well, I mean, he could have just axed, like. I think at that point, with like the position he was in, he could have axed pretty much anyone, and the results mostly stay similar.
Oh yeah, I mean, the Mafia is in an awful position, but it's not unsalvageable. You will be amazed at how much town can throw when they're allowed to.
Correct. It's not unsalvageable, but I think he was in a spot where like I think axing himself is like it's not like a good play. I think there are better plays, but I think it was a play that you could reasonably say, well, do really any of these other plays actually affect the outcome positively for us? And the answer is Rand, but mostly no.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. There's some actions that do not affect the game.
Yep. And this was one of them. Ellie dies. Ellie is not Mafia. Rich correctly identifies the actions, pushes.
Okay, now I think this is a really good moment.
We need to highlight this.
Yeah, and I wanted to clip this specifically because, of course, at this point, Town's doing fine, and probably no matter which, the bomb's out of the game, so order doesn't matter as much, right? Like your main concern is, you've already gotten the bomb out of the game, but getting the axe early is sort of like a great way to ensure the victory, and Rich actually makes a fairly good logical play here. I think you should just play the clip.
Yep, I'm about to.
Which is why there was no KP. Spectrum is outed as Mafia. Logan was the real god. But we are not killing Spectrum today because Spectrum is not the axe. Listen, the person we are killing today is James, who claimed Hunter, which is Chad's role. Chad is always the Hunter because he never fake claims. So we are killing James because he can still be the axe, while Spectrum can't be the axe because Spectrum got disabled and there was still an axe.
I mean,
everybody got that?
Good on Rich, right? It's a pretty good line of reasoning. And there isn't anything more to say about it. He's just saying, even if we're winning, even if we're stomping this, let's finish this on the best way possible, which is leave them no chance whatsoever to come back.
Yeah, and combined a phenomenal understanding of the mechanics of the setup with some meta. So he had an understanding of Chad, never fake claiming there. So pushing that as well and trying to make it clear that makes bolstering his claim for him there was very good. But just his game sense and the fact that yes, the only Mafia you've killed is the bomb. The axes in the game, and that's the only long shot win condition for Mafia is just the hero axe play or something, and making that the focus of the day is excellent.
And then I think this, Shakespeare in the previous game we reviewed, you were saying maybe in the final 7, that's where you need to take your known Mafia and pivot to something else to actually make sure that the final 3 isn't this thing the Mafia have constructed for you. And I think this is a really good example of that, where you're doing fine, a Mafia and Spectrum, but Rich makes the successful pivot to actually kill James, who is the more valuable Mafia at this time. Yes. He can always execute Spectrum. And the fact that he's correctly, 100% correct about James through the understanding of mechanics and so on is really good.
Yeah, it also made saying that, killing the people you have the equity to kill while you're still alive is more valuable than killing the people who everybody knows should be dead.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody knows that Spectrum is a dead man walking. Almost everybody knows that Town has no way to lose the game. They probably have some obscure way to tie, and he just takes that away from them. He just says no.
Take away the resources.
And that was the thing.
I was so sorry. This is so cancer.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Can you mute? Thanks, you just mute for a sec.
And that was the thing I was thinking about when I was watching the game in real time until I actually took the time to learn the mechanics better in the setup. Was was when thinking with my DM brain, I'm just like, Spectrum's always just the kill here, right? Because Spectrum's just outed, get him killed, all that good stuff. And then once I started thinking about the setup and then watched it back again, and that's the thing about the knowledge of this setup is since Rich had the knowledge, just like, even though Town was in a really good spot, like you guys were saying earlier, even though Town was in a really good spot, just deny them any opportunity to get the, random comeback in case Town considers throwing. And so even though in my original assumption was just like, well, the correct play is just to kill Spectrum, right? What Rich was saying now, thinking about the setup, makes more sense now because of how never assume Town's going to win ever, I guess.
And he didn't even just do that, right? So he continued.
I don't have any clips from the Carson day, but maybe something similar happened.
Well, it continued, right? So this was still day 4. So Rich, correctly surveyed sort of the situation, assessed the situation, and then he also outed this low probability world that they could potentially be losing to, where Spectrum was actually not Mafia and just the alien, and he offered sort of a gambit to Mafia. He said if you are one of the Mafia needs to claim, if in fact Spectrum is the alien, we don't all want to lose to the alien. So a Mafia should claim here if Spectrum is the activated alien, and just out themselves, so that the alien isn't the sole victor here, and that caused the last Mafia, Carson, to out himself here. So literally, he did so much work this day just through his understanding of the setup in the game state.
If I'm Carson, I think I let because I think since Carson was the only way Mafia could feasibly win, I would have let James fall on that sword, but that's kind of splitting hairs, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it was great because so Carson claims, right, and then Dude Mike comes back at him and is like, but Carson, you know who the axe is, right? And Carson responds, yeah, but why would I tell you? Why would I tell you? In a way that I thought was very spewy, and confirms Dude Mike is Town. If he wasn't already clear for other reasons,
if he wasn't already confirmed.
Yeah, the game was solved in so many ways at this point, and as Town, you've got to be feeling pretty confident about what's going to happen, what you need to do.
Yep.
So he directed the kill onto James. They basically secured the win there. So. Unfortunate what happened to Shakespeare. Hopefully he's back with us shortly.
Yeah, no, there's a fire alarm, so he'll be back, I assume.
I've been there before.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. But yeah, I think for I don't know, for me the point of doing these game reviews is to figure out the critical moments in the game at which people could have done something different and it would have led to a different outcome. What were the actual mistakes made here? And I think the actual mechanical mistakes I think we already touched on, which is, Night 2, which is Carson disabling Spectrum and James axing Timmix, where I think the straw that broke the camel's back, and then sort of the misplays resulting from that were just all sort of the ripple effect of those initial mistakes, and you just
eventually the one Spectrum couldn't know that Logan was the cop, but and so when he gives out that check, he couldn't know, but the little mistakes of Spectrum claims cop, the prostitute then basically neuters Mafia. James essentially tells his partner, hey, you can't fight this incoming check on you, which again he couldn't know, but at the same time you let Mafia at least have a chance there.
Yeah. A lot of this stuff, obviously you can't predict what will happen to you, but you can sort of mitigate against the risks of it happening to you by keeping all your resources alive, which is all your voices and all your
right. So there were a few major moments. The major moments to me, the cop Spectrum's cop claim, interesting, but maybe a net negative to the Mafia team there. I thought Logan played well. I thought Rich played phenomenally. He closed it out there. But all in all, an interesting game. It's for how thin the margins are in the setup sometimes. It feels like you can play so correct as Town and still like barely get there. In this game, Town was playing very poorly to begin with, and then it just all, like you said at the very beginning, hinting that this was just a house of cards, it all just collapsed for the Mafia there at the end.
And just to reveal the ending for people, because we didn't like quite make it all the way through, but at the very end we have like a final 5 at night. Spectrum, who is the last Mafia who has been kept alive to be executed.
just a fuckers himself.
People have figured out that he's the least valuable Mafia. They're like, let's kill the axe first, let's kill the prostitute first, then we can deal with this guy, right? So, I imagine there's several reasons he decided to go for Chad there, who was the real hunter, possibly hoping that Chad will like kill someone else. Well, and you have to get rid of the hunter one way or the other, so I don't really fault him for like killing Chad here, and Chad just like without hesitation killed Spectrum, who at the very least is an alien, right?
Yeah.
So, and then Town wins with 3 alive.
Yeah, but I think this game also brings up an interesting point that I just thought about, where if you look at the fact that when you compare the Super Mafia All Stars game to this game, because we talked about how James axing all of his Mafia ended up being a net negative. Whereas in the All Stars game, we talked about how Mafia did a good job they created the narrative that town had to follow, where RJ started to create the narrative, and they were just and people were thinking like days ahead about, okay, how do we need to get this win con?
Yeah.
Whereas in this game, Mafia denied themselves the ability to create the narrative, and eventually that caught up with them.
Yeah, I think like, when you have a team of 2 other Mafia, like they may have ideas that you don't, right? Like as a team, you all have individual ideas about what's the right move at any one point. And it's sort of this improv exercise that once one of your Mafia partners does something, like you are now forced to become part of that narrative. And by like, in this case, like symbolically axing the tongue, you like limit the number of ideas the Mafia can bring to the table in the middle of the game, right? Like I've seen games where like the Mafia mass claim special roles and get all the real ones killed or, executed, right? And that's hugely powerful if you keep all those resources alive for them to be actually like having ideas and then acting on them in real time in a way that, as you said, controls the narrative to the extent they need to.
Right. All in all, another enjoyable game though. A lot to it. A lot of interesting moments and good reads. So, I think, so it's definitely some good games this week. I enjoyed both, and it's been a good VoD review.
Yeah, no, it's been good. So we'll wait. Shakespeare's still not back, and he's the one that controlled the stream, but it's fine. If there are any questions in Twitch chat, we'd be happy to take them. If you have thoughts on the game or any questions for us. But otherwise, the regular season is starting up on Monday, and we're just getting set up for that, getting the schedule done. But it should be a lot of fun. Other people have had some experience with the setup, and I look forward to more great games and hopefully some more like nuanced games as well, where I think the preseason is good for understanding like what are the instinctual plays, what are the plays that like work most of the time, 70-80% of the time. And I think what we're hoping to see in the preseason is, more fake claims that are not policeman claims, more disablings that are not just like, let me just straight up disable the PR, that kind of thing. And I think just sort of expanding your repertoire.
Yeah. And I agree, Rob. So if your voice is in the game, you can't control the direction of the game. It's interesting. Like we've seen, it is powerful to be under the radar, have your voice axed, and like if people just forget to put you up or something, you can really skate by for a while. But it's not always ideal. And you're right. Like the power of being able to control the direction of the day as Mafia, especially when you have such a practically a majority there. Is really valuable. So that was unfortunate here.
We have a question in the Twitch chat. Who's your favorite Mafia player?
Well, you've watched a lot. Maybe you don't want to take sides. Dave, do you have an answer?
When I first started playing, my favorite Mafia player was to Slippery, mostly just because I liked how Slip how Slip was able to just like calmly talk through these long logical patterns of thought, and I always like kind of admired that of his play. Before I started to become the kind of loud, shouty player I was in the early stages of my Mafia career, Slip was kind of the player I like, the player style that I kind of like idolized, like when I was starting to learn the ropes of the game and everything. Nowadays it's kind of like, since I've been in the game long enough, it's like having a favorite Mafia player is kind of just like you have multiple favorite Mafia players, right, and they all do different things well. So it's like okay, this person does this thing well that I like, this person does some other different thing well that I like. So you have like an amalgamation of your perfect Mafia player based on what a bunch of people just do well, right? So
yeah, for me, well, I of course enjoy playing tons of games with Shakespeare. That's how, of course, this all started. So I would be remiss if I didn't say that like Shakespeare is certainly at least one of my favorite Mafia players. I do think like Oracle from last season is by far one of my favorite Mafia players. I think he has a really good understanding of the game at an intuitive level. Like many of the arguments he makes will not be purely from the standpoint of mechanics and game solving per se, but I think like he has a very good ability to distinguish the motivations of like why people are saying certain things, and like whether it's a PR being shifty versus a prostitute being shifty versus a killing Mafia being shifty. He has a very good sense of like I don't know, one thing that happened a lot in our live games is that many prostitutes in their defense would say something like, well, you can just check me and you'll see that I'm not Mafia, right? And of course it's an obvious thing to say, and like of course townspeople can say that too, but it just so happened like prostitutes think that this is like the best defense they have because it's a true thing they can say.
They're aware of their perk and they want to take advantage of it.
They're aware of the true thing that is going for them, right? And there are many cases where Oracle has been able to pick, like, the reason he defended him specifically, that makes me think he is specifically the prostitute, right? And he's been right. So Oracle for sure. Also, I play with MK Lol a lot, and MK Lol is a wildly entertaining player to have in any game. He's very rambunctious, very opinionated. He'll definitely make your game interesting.
I look forward to seeing from him, yeah.
Yeah, and I think he's also, of course, a very good player. And he will, he rages a lot, like fake rage, or like humorously rages a lot. And I think that if you're not used to that, it can throw you off, so.
I like all those picks. I've definitely enjoyed playing with Oracle, meeting and playing with Oracle. I think that Logan is an enormous amount of fun, especially like the combination of Logan and Surfab in a game just is bound to be a blast. I think that Lexi is very impressive as well. There are a lot of players. I thought Rich played phenomenally this game. So these games have been great, and so feel free to get out of the call when you're done.
Yeah. So, I don't want to. Yeah, I think this is a good place to wrap up. We look forward to seeing everyone in the regular season, and hope you enjoyed this. If you have any feedback on this VOD review, I know like it went for a fairly long time, so like I don't think any of us like. I don't think there was any like slowness, or sorry, I don't think there was any like feeling on our part that this was too long, but maybe for the viewer it's very long, especially if you've not seen these games in the full detail or you've not been like part of at least one of these games. Yeah. So if it's too long, if it's not snappy, if there's like things you wanted us to focus more on that we didn't touch on, like please let us know either in the Twitch chat or over Discord. But looking forward to your feedback, and we'll see you soon.
All right, good night, everyone.
Good night.
See you guys.